Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta go. I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm
See you
really
later.
sorry. I can't participate. Yeah, sorry.
It's all right.
BBRB's Nurgle has a salvager. Wow.
So Matt,
Yes.
I know you like these stories. I
Hold on.
found Neo.
1 second. We are
Okay,
streaming, so
sorry.
everybody in here know that you're
Oh,
recorded, going live. We're going to dispense with the usual. Well, I will say it's Saturday, May 23rd. We're going to do some Eve talk. We're going to skip the stats and go to discussion, free and open discussion. If you guys have questions or concerns you want to debate. This is truly talking in stations. All right, we just lost our new player that was going to provide us with hours and hours of content as we answered questions.
I literally told him before we joined the channel. I literally told him, "Well, if you tell Motherall that you're a brand new player, we're gonna have a podcast for the next 3 hours because you love new players."
Well, that's
You
that.
scared him off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Neo
It's
was
good.
so as I've said before many times, I enjoy like hanging out in the Up channel and running some missions and doing some random stuff. And I found Neo. He was asking some questions, and I found him, and I answered these questions, and I pulled him aside, and I even told him, hey, come on, Talking in Stations, listen to this podcast. It's a good podcast. We have podcasts every day about Eve news and the politics of Eve, and random subjects that come up every day. And then we just end up talking for like 4 hours, about Eve, and I sent him like a bunch of helpful links that he said it's gonna take days to sort through it, and yeah, we were just talking about Eve and giving him a little bit of an introduction, and yeah, he's still testing the game, still experimenting, and doing some ISEC stuff,
So
and yeah.
he's brand new, brand new.
Brand new. He's an alpha clone. Brand new. He was running some level 3 missions in Amar. And yeah, I introduced him to Spectre Fleet Bombers Bar. That's usually what's open as a brand new player. It's very useful to know those guys and hang out with those guys. And yeah, he's brand new, brand new.
Oh well. We'll see if he how he does, if he survives.
Yeah, he was even commenting on the fact that he's just testing the game right now as an alpha. I even sent him some ISK to help him with skill books because I tend to do that.
Get him over that
And
initial hump.
yeah, but at the same time, you don't want to send them too much because then they get bad used to it, right?
They
They don't
become
value ISK the
they
way that they
become
should.
they become pigeons.
Yeah, they become pigeons pretty much. So you don't want to send them too much, but you want to send them enough.
Yeah,
I tend to do that a
I
lot.
don't send people. It's hard sometimes because you want to help people over
Yeah,
humps, but
yeah,
I'm thinking that every time you help somebody, you're actually taking something away from them. You're not helping them. You're taking an opportunity for them to accomplish something away.
yeah,
It sounds harsh and
I
greedy, but
yeah.
it's
Well,
true.
there's a fine line there. So I've actually had this discussion specifically regarding ISK. I think that's a really good example of this. Um, when you find a new player and you dump like 100 million ISK on them because it means nothing to you and it means the world to them, like that's taking away their sense of accomplishment of their first million, their first 10 million, etc.
Right.
And it is better to teach a man to fish than to hand them, the gigantic tuna.
Slap 'em over the head with a big tuna.
Yeah, so there is a line. You can help players, you can guide them, you can point them in the right direction, without taking away their agency, without removing their accomplishment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just it's a judgment call, right? I like there've been
yeah, because
people who I should help, right? Who work for TIS, do a lot of work for it, and I'm like, I should give them ISK. So I had someone sell some things for me, and I thought, well, let's just say, you know what, keep all the profits. I don't want anything back. But then
yeah,
I
because
but then I
that's the
thought,
thing with
I
Eve.
need to
So
stay true. Sorry, to that. I need to stay true to that reality of like you're doing a thing and you're making a profit, but it's not the whole profit, because the next time somebody says, can you sell my stuff? You might be hoping for that entire payday instead of just the, 10% that you were contracted to do. So again, you take away by anesthetizing them to the actual contract, to the actual deal. You take that away when you're being overly generous. It sounds really counterintuitive.
That's
I
that's the
attempt to behave
thing.
in a tutorial manner.
Sorry, Z Master was trying to get in. I kept knocking him out.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like with helping new players, I do that a lot, and it's what I was trying to say. Like, the trick is not to give them too much because it takes the sense of accomplishment that Fonsui was talking about. But at the same time, I want to give them enough so they can actually use it in a way that is useful to them. Like, you give them 50 million, they have enough to buy skill books, they have enough to buy a 20 million frigate and go hang out in faction warfare and
Yeah.
experience the shakes for the first time, right?
Yeah, got it.
But you don't
Got the point, Z Master.
say again.
I got the point. I got to move over to Fonsui because he was going to say
Oh,
something.
no, well, no. I was just saying I attempt to behave in a tutorial manner, which means you give the players the specific resources that they require in order to accomplish a given task. So you want them to go PvP, you'll give them 2 or 3 very inexpensive frigates. You'll give them the skill books that they need to learn it. And you don't really talk about their value. You don't say, well, this is worth a whole bunch. Just give them the thing that they need to participate in the activity either alone or with you or with, whatever group. Again, it is it is removing the blockers as opposed to boosting them up.
Oh, all right. New players, helping them out. It's not as easy as it sounds for many reasons. All right. Well, we won't talk about what's going on in Eve necessarily, because or we can look for things here. What's wrong with this? Twitter is not okay. We were looking at.
By the way, this is not universal. Like I have a real life friend that I would like for him to play Eve. He's not gonna be the kind of guy who's like that wide-eyed new bro who's like gonna be so impressed with his first million or 10 million or whatever. I'm not taking anything away. So I could just hang out and be like, hey dude, I'm gonna give you like 500 million isk and you're gonna be able to do this and that and the other. And I'll tell him what he can do with it. And I'm not ruining anything for him. I'm just allowing him to play. But when you meet someone in game and you don't know who they are or what they're about, then it's usually better to take a lighter touch.
I have two minds about the fittings, because if you give someone a ship, do you give them a hull or a fitted ship? Fitted ship is probably more useful immediately, but I see a lot of players, newer players, when I say newer, last couple of years, who grew up with workbenches and fittings handed to them, and they still don't know how to fit a ship.
Right, you can't just
back in the day we didn't have that. And back in the day, we didn't have that. You had to learn how to fit a ship. And that was usually within your first few months. You lose a ship, realize, oh my goodness, the fitting's really bad. You start learning strategies of fitting. And that used to be more of a universal thing a new player would learn at some point.
At some point. I don't think fitting should be first. I think you should fly,
right,
crash, fly, crash, fly, crash, and say, how can I improve this ship? I would give people that were new a fitted ship with ammo. Everything they need, and get them involved in some of the joys of the actual gameplay instead of the potential decision making that requires a ton of extra research.
Yeah, the fitting
like
is
level missions, like level 1, 2, 3 missions. The purpose of those missions is to learn how to fit and fly. Because you do level 1s, and you go to level 2s. They're not to make lots of ISK. Let's be honest. They're not ISK making wonderful ISK making things for new players. A lot of better things you can do, including abyssals. But the idea is, I start at level 1, I go to level 2. Ooh, it's a lot more difficult. I might have to fit my ship differently. It's not learning how to PvP fit. That's different. But you start getting this idea of, I need to do something different with my ship to handle this incremental content that's a little harder.
Yeah, I definitely agree that fitting is something that players should learn, at least on some level. But as Matterall said, it's not necessarily the first thing, because it's just too daunting. There's too much to understand and know, and having them fly before they can fit, I think, is appropriate, as long as you don't abandon them and then don't teach them how to fit or the importance of that.
You know, I've been mentioning this game a lot because I'm loving it and playing it on the side. It's called Death Stranding, right? And it's genius level entertainment for electronics. It's a video game, but it's a weird combination of first person player or what do you call that? You know, a storyline like Uncharted or Tomb Raider, but it's mixed in with some social aspects and some open worldness. But one of the things that it does, I've noticed, is I don't think this is spoiling anything, but it's impossible for you to use it's not impossible. It's unlikely that you can use the comforts of the things that you're building to help you in the very next mission until you accomplish the mission. And then the game allows you to reconstruct your inventory to work better. But you need to take the hard lesson first. You need to figure out like, oh, this is what it's like being stuck in the mud. This sucks. I walk slower. And so then the next after you finish that lesson and you've gone through the pain of it, then you realize like, oh, here's a schematic for shoes that walk on mud. That's totally fictional, by the way. That's not in the game. But that's the point, is you get the thing that will relieve the pressure of the pain that you just went through, but only after you went through the pain. And I thought the game was very genius that way. So Eve should probably, I mean, if you're helping a new player, you should have them go and wreck a ship. And then when they say like, yeah, these guys cut right through me, they say, yeah, because they were using this kind of damage. And the way you protect against this kind of damage is use this kind of tank. I would say that would be optimal, but you know, we don't all have that time to invest in new players all the time.
Well, that's why you need something programmatic as opposed to you have to spend real time yourself every single time for every single new player.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, someone talking in there? Was that Dunk on his...
I was just, I don't know if you can hear me.
Let me turn you up.
Yeah, can we turn Dunk up? He's a little quiet.
Well, I'll turn him up, but that's just for me. You'll have to turn him up on your own. Go ahead, Dunk. We're just looking at Dunk Dinkle's...
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's some news left off. But yeah, we spend a lot of time with the new players, talking them through one step at a time. We tend to just give them ships that are already fitted. It's like, go out, blow up 5 of these, and you know, we have fittings that are very easy for even new players without the magic 14 to fit. So we spend a lot of time one-on-one, like just talking them through stuff, because it's completely confusing, especially when they get to null sec. If they've been in high sec, a lot of the rules are just fundamentally different.
Yeah, I've been working on an Abyss training program for a little while now. And the first step of that program is we hand the player 10 fitted kestrels that are terrible. They're really, really weak. They cost 1.6 million ISK. And we hand them the kestrels and the ammo and the dark Abyss filaments, the tier 1 filaments. And we're like, go blow up 10 of these alone. And when you blow up all 10, come back and tell me what you've learned. And by handing them those ships, we're removing the fear of the money. How am I going to replace this? How am I going to make this? How did I get all this stuff? Just go out there, experience it, find out what's easy, find out what's hard, and invariably, anyone who actually, makes it through all 10, sometimes it takes a little encouragement because people don't like dying repeatedly, but if you frame it correctly, they're usually okay with it. Every single time they come back to me, they all have at least 5 different things that they have learned on their own, and they're happy about it.
All right, so this Dunk thing, so he puts out this blog. You should kind of read it. It's dunkdinkle.com. Super easy to find. He's a CSM member, so has some insight there. But mostly this is out of NDA posts that cover kind of what CSM is up to. It's usually part bullet points of what was done and talked about, and then his reactions to it. and a lot of people seem to agree with his sentiments and what he says about it. So this last one, he says, CSM voting, a few thoughts. Now he's here, but he's probably busy, so I'll just go through some of the.
I can summarize because I gotta go
Right.
to
Go ahead,
bike
summarize.
ride Finkel. So basically, I think people are underestimating the power of the block voting when they put their mind to getting people elected. Of the three major coalitions in the game, it's pretty trivial for them to each put two candidates on the ballot that could win basically in the first round or the second round. So that takes, in my view, 6 of the 10 slots just off of the kind of candidate opportunities for people who are not so well known. And then even if you go past that, there are candidates out there that literally have the groups that could vote. If they all voted, could immediately get them on. The question is, will they get them on? And I think it makes it extremely tough for candidates that don't have a very wide following, that can't get upwards of 1,000 first place votes in the first round. If you can't do that, it's almost impossible to make your way if you're not on a block voting slate.
Yeah. 1,000 first place votes, just table stakes. That's just to get you in to get eliminated later. So if you don't have constituency of, I don't know, 800 that you know about, there's no way you're going to get 1,200 extra. It's almost impossible. Is that discouraging? Am I discouraging prospective CSMers?
Well, it discourages those who are independent and not part of a block.
The block
I think it
voters.
discourages the casual running for CSM, and I don't want to. I don't mean this as a negative to anyone who is running for CSM, but understanding the rules is important on how to formulate your campaign. If you just thought this time around, I'll go for CSM. I'm gonna fill out my application, put my post up. I have a pretty good shot. I have a 1 in 4 chance because there's 10 slots and it's 40 of us. That's not really the truth. And I think Dunk's article shows that really what you're up against and what you need to do if you really want to take a serious shot at joining the CSM.
The reality is, it's not 10 slots for 40 people, 1 in 4. It's more like 4 or 3 slots for 37 or 36 people. It's more like a 1 in 9 rounded around 1 in 9 chance. Not
All
the
right.
best odds compared to 1 in 4.
Dunk actually got back in. His Discord had tanked just a second ago. Well, are you able to talk, Dunk? If not, I'll just go on here. See if he sorts that out. I think I'm pretty low too. How's this voice level? All right. So the blocks that he's referring to, let's go through these real quick. So he predicts that Horde and PandaFam or PanFam will have Gobbins +1, and that +1 is probably Steadio and FC. So Gobbins will get in. But even people like Gobbins are nervous that everyone will take for granted that he'll get in, and so he won't. So he's quite nervous last year that there would be some fluke. And if you think about it, there's a lot more at stake for him. Someone like that has a huge block and is the leader of that block, right? It's not just somebody who is anointed by the leader. He is the leader. For him not to get on CSM last year would have been pretty embarrassing. Would have been considered a defeat for Horde. So they came through though, and he did get on, and he got on with a huge margin. So he could rest easy. So now he's probably a lot less nervous because he realizes that vote is there for him. PanFam won't, or Horde won't, as a group, be embarrassed that he didn't get on. But now the question is, can they put 2 candidates on? So it's Gobbins plus whoever is the second candidate out of that PanFam coalition. That is not just Horde, but it's also NC Dot and Pandemic Legion. The further question is, who is that secondary candidate? Is it Steadio, who's from Horde, who does a lot of the work for Horde, right? He's an FC, he's doing a lot of the work. Or is it someone I favor, Kenneth Feld from Pandemic Legion? Does he get put on as that second person? And so that'll be interesting to watch how they negotiate that. Right. So that, blocks have, I think they have one chair for sure, and maybe two. 3, I don't know if they have 3. I think 3 has to start picking up votes elsewhere. All right, guys. So everybody who's watching already, I wanted to say good morning. And it is morning over here in California and Los Angeles. We're just hanging out. We're going to be talking about Eve. If you guys have any problems, or I keep saying problems, if you have any things you want to work out, like, what corporation should I join? What alliance should I join? What video game should I play while I'm playing Eve? That kind of stuff. Like, hang out and we'll discuss it, because I am all about trying to share knowledge and to build a friend base for everybody at Talking In Station. So that's what we want to do here, is a group of us hanging out. So you're welcome to come and join us and just either ask your question or give us your comments and that sort of stuff.
Does this work better?
Oh, so much better.
Quite clear.
Sorry about that. I was on my laptop up front, and now Mrs. Dinkle has cleared out the office from yoga, but we're going on a bike ride soon. So,
all right, tell us about
I
your
don't know if
post.
there was questions about my article. I don't know how much you heard of what I said before the thing locked up.
Why don't you just say it all?
Yeah, start over.
Well, I think I heard the morning show on my drive into work last week, and you guys were talking about some of the candidates that aren't well known, and I was kind of surprised how there wasn't much talk about how extremely difficult it is for smaller, less known candidates to get in. So I wrote the article to kind of call out that about 6 of the slots are basically spoken for by the major coalitions, and that even past that, there are people running that have the votes if they can get their people to vote to get on basically in the first few rounds, which leaves the amount of people who aren't well known very small. And basically, if you can't generate almost 1,000 number one votes, ballots, on your own without any other support, there's almost no way you get on the CSM unless you're part of a large block, which is pretty demoralizing to some of the smaller candidates that would like to be voted on, but it's very difficult to get 1,000 people to put you number one on their ballot. So I was just trying to be a little realistic about how I saw the voting dynamics work.
Well, what do you think should be done about that? Like, is there something to be done? Is it even a problem?
I don't know. I mean, the CSM and CCP have debated this an awful lot. There's no good answer. That's the issue. People have suggested that the slots should be for different roles in Eve, and that people could run for a role. The problem with that is that can be gamed almost even more. I mean, while I'm a null-sec candidate, part of a large coalition, I'm also an industrialist, and I could run on that. I happen to be the alliance executor of our high-sec branch. I could run on that. There's a lot of different ways I could position myself to basically game the system and still allow my coalition to have even more candidates. So it gets very difficult, and then the solution is, well, maybe CCP can make a judgment call about who does what, or we look at data, but even that can be gamed in metrics. So it's a very difficult thing to solve right now.
Well, why do people run for CSM in the first place? What's attracting them to it?
Well, I can't speak to other people. For myself, it was really 2 things. One, I had people asking me to run. They wanted me to go represent views. And 2, I felt I could have an impact. I felt I had a viewpoint and advantage into the player base that CCP might not be addressing as much as they should be. And I wanted them to hear it in a very clear fashion.
Right. So you got drafted and you had some ideas that you wanted to take, or I think you ran though on a platform of, look, I'm not intimidated by anybody. I deal with Hollywood entertainment execs all the time, and so I could sit at that table and be a voice of clarity without being just a quiet, empty seat. And that was one of the pushes you had, right?
Well, yeah, I think there's always concern that there's too many people from one play style and that they all speak as one and they don't argue and fight. And that isn't true, but I think part of my campaign was convincing people that I wasn't going to be a quote, goon CSM member that just did things in lockstep with them. And there's many times that we came into conflict about different topics.
Right. And that's where you're not intimidated by anybody else in the room is important.
Well, I think that's part of it. I think, I'm going to probably write an article about what people should expect out of their candidates besides just they have a point of view they like about how a CSM member is effective and how they're ineffective. And I think you have to be able to compromise. You have to be able to state your arguments quickly. You have to be able to listen and understand why someone is proposing something. There's a lot of attributes that if you just take like a ramrod juggernaut approach, you may feel like you're helping, but in some cases you're just reinforcing the position that's against you.
Ooh, traps. Well, your overall experience with CSM, do you have, was it meaningful? I won't ask if you had fun, but was it meaningful?
Yeah, I mean, I think I made an impact on the game and an impact on the CCP about helping keep certain things in their point of view all the time. For myself, I think I learned that there are things I don't like about being in the public eye. No one likes to be slammed routinely, even with a strong internal ego and a healthy self-confidence. No one
Did I
likes to get slammed.
Did I slam you too much, Dunk?
No, it's there's people who can disagree with me, and that's fine. Like disagree on a point, but like when people attack me personally, that I don't have integrity, or that I did something, that I'm cheating, or I'm an RMT, or I'm part of conspiracy.
Wow,
that kind of stuff is disheartening. And when you're on the public side, you don't see it as much, but a lot of it's directed directly at you. And people contact you, and I've made a policy to basically respond to anyone who contacts me. It can be a little just makes you question humanity a little bit.
You almost have to expect that to some degree. Like when people come to you with that, that's a reflection more on them than on you, frankly.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think I can handle it. I just think it affects you, right? No one is immune.
Surely.
You just wave off all that stuff, and so all it takes is I have a bad day at work, or some people at work are being unrealistic, and then I come home and my Discord is full of people with little angry red dots at me, and then Reddit is mad that I said something that they didn't like, and then you're just kind of like, fuck everybody. And I don't need that in my life. I wish there was a better way for people to express their criticism.
You should do what Ron USMC does. He's like, Reddit? Who's Reddit? It just doesn't engage with people that are poisonous to him. Just completely walls it off, and that's a good lesson for all of us. But you can't do that.
Well, I do it. I do it to some degree, but when I'm doing the CSM update, of which I try to do every time we have a meeting or something happens, that I put what happened in the meeting that's cleared by CCP and then my thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that that's owed to the community, that I represent all the players, not just a small group, and so they deserve, and they're on Reddit. So I'm going to post there, whether I know I want to get 500 downvotes or not. I'm going to post there because I feel that's what's owed to the community. But it doesn't make me want to do it when I know that they're going to pull out of context quotes from a year ago at me and things like that. It doesn't make you want to help those people. And that's part of the cynicism I talked about when I said I wasn't running this year.
Yeah.
Matter I got an interesting,
Hold on. If you have a different question, hold on to it for a second. Franz, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say we appreciate your hard work, Dunk. That was all.
Except for the
Well, I
Tech 2
appreciate that.
salvage drones. We didn't quite get the
Yeah,
salvage
man.
I'm
drone.
working on it.
You
I'm working
failed
on it. My
us.
term's not over yet.
You
He
failed
is
us.
our champion, man.
This is
Let
my
him work.
This is my finger in your face, Dunk. Where's our salvage drones? No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't pushing for salvage drones, so I'm just kidding.
All right, everyone, I'm about to head out. I'm standing here in my riding clothes, so I'm going out with Mrs. Dinkle for a ride and a beautiful day.
Yep.
So you all have a good Saturday.
Wear a mask. See you later. I don't think you
Matter,
can.
in response to why some people run for CSM,
Hmm.
I was given this interesting piece of advice by someone who was trying to convince me to do so. And they said, win or
Convince
lose,
you to run
at
for
the end,
CSM?
somebody tried to. I do not see myself doing that. But the reason behind it is it gives people an opportunity to speak out, win or lose. It gives them a voice and it gives them, well, a spot to get their voice heard.
Oh, you're coming in and out, Rich. But why does everybody deserve, or why do some people deserve a voice?
Some people have different perspectives on things, and of course, we wouldn't want a CSM full of people who are very similar or have very similar interests. It's best to have diversity and various different interests to have all points of view rather than a general one or
Well,
that is directed
I think we all
towards.
can agree on diversity is important. I think. Maybe not. Maybe people think this game is solely about their play style, but judging from the amount of pounding I've done on diversity on the CSM, and how many people have kind of, reached out and said, yeah, you're right about that. We can all agree that diversity is important because this is a game with multiple facets, multiple different games in one universe. You need a lot more representation than just one or two game styles. Now, but diversity doesn't just mean anybody. It means somebody who can speak, either can sit in that room or has the knowledge to not get blown out of that room, because you will get blown out of that room if you don't know what you're talking about.
The other one is, well, running for CSM is experience, whether you win or lose. It puts your name out there. It gives you the history and the experience of doing so. So in the future, maybe next year, you may run again, and you may run with a better understanding and more knowledge, and you're somebody who has run before, who knows what they're doing, rather than somebody who's running fresh.
I totally don't get that. I do and I don't, right? So you say, and Dirk McGurk used to say this all the time, run your first year, put some articles out there 6 months earlier, get your visibility up there, do talk shows, show up, in these free channels that are open with an audience and that sort of stuff. Like get into that campaign mode, make your campaign commercial, write your articles and write your why I should do that. Now, do that the first year and just get your visibility up, your exposure up, and then don't expect to win. But then your second year, try harder, and you'll have the benefit of the first year name recognition that was, you were on the ballot, that name is there. And I think Dirk McGurk's point is correct in that this is all about name recognition. Nobody's going to vote for you based on your description, and very few people will vote for you based on your interview. But then again, you're reaching the media there. But what does make sense about what Dirk is saying, let me just finish this point so then we can pass it. What does make sense is it's about name recognition, which is what he's saying. It's not that people will necessarily agree with what you write first time off, but they got to know who you are, and then they got to know what you think before they even consider you. And this is for all candidates, not block candidates.
It was suggested to me because, well, I have been on talk shows and I have made videos and posts and
Dude, you
gotten
made 3
myself out there.
videos.
What more to come?
And one of them was completely inaccurate. Like, how many videos have you made?
Well, I'm not running for CSM, but somebody was trying to suggest that to me. Somebody was trying to push that onto me. And the other point they made, which I felt was rather sinister, was by running a CSM and by getting yourself out there and by entering the debates, you could, rather than seeking to win, seek to drag down another candidate. And well,
I
cripple
don't see
them.
how that's possible. I think that's all fanciful thinking, dude.
Well,
Like
that's what it was suggested to me. So when you say
well,
why
tell
would
that guy
somebody run
he's
for
wrong.
CSM, that could also be a
Whoever's
reason.
suggesting that to you has no idea how to do this. I mean, what you're saying is, look, there's a platform. People are paying attention to CSM. Therefore, use that time and space where people are focused on CSM, not for yourself, but to take someone else down. It's just fanciful thinking. You're not going to take someone else down in that way.
But not exactly take somebody else down, but to weaken their position and potentially help promote another. That's what it is to them. That is
Kinda-
what it
kinda
is
like
to the
a-
person who tried to push the idea of running onto me.
Yeah. I was going to make a joke, but it's not really a joke. This is real biology. There's like, well,
Go ahead.
I don't know if I should make this because it's not meant to insult you, but it is a little bit sexy in that. Do you know that there are different types of sperm cells? Some of them are runners that are just running for that egg to fertilize it. And some of them are actually just blockers. They actually are just meant to entangle other sperm cells that are not theirs. So there are blockers and there are runners. And so you're saying, like, using that analogy.
Somebody sought to weaponize, an outspoken and outreaching member of the community to use them and, convince them to be, I guess, a weapon to weaken other CSM members.
Well, I think
Well, there are two ways that you can influence the election from inside the election without the intent to win. One is being an official candidate that is on the ballot, gives you a voice and a platform that people are going to listen to, and the other is being a spoiler, which is a real life concept.
I think what I'm getting at is that somebody may be saying that in full, good intentions for you, but I also feel like somebody's throwing you in front of the wolves because you don't mind the heat. But I wouldn't fall for it. It's just going to damage your reputation more. If that doesn't matter to you, it doesn't matter to you. But
well, the fact that I'm not running should indicate.
If it does matter to you, you want to be taken seriously. Well, if you want to be taken seriously, you can't revel in agitation. You're just becoming a negative voice. So you have to have something to offer, and you do. But running to really like just kind of be a blocker sperm cell, not a great idea unless you just don't care about having any credibility later or any voice later. Because this game, look, we all sit around listening to other people who know more about this game than we do. And if you want to be one of those voices, people care about, you have to talk about things that they want to know, not necessarily things that you think, which is something that, you have to really separate. A lot of times players want to say, I got something to say. It's like, I'm a rock band. We're a goth rock band. I got something to say. I got something to sing about. That's awesome, man. But we've all had those, girlfriends break up with us. And it's not new to me. And I don't necessarily want to get that from you. But if you play music, I'll listen to that. So it's kind of like that. People want to know, like, what you know, not what you think. I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of tuning in to EVE Online stuff is all about. And that's why we sit around talking about that stuff. That, and we're entertaining or funny or that sort of thing. And that's why I'm trying to be a little bit goofy about my analogies and stuff. That said, if you want to run for CSM, anybody out there, not just Rich, but anybody out there, you could do it for the experience. It's free and it doesn't cost you anything. If you want to run to win, that's a different story. And that's what Dunk Dinkle is talking about. You want to run to win. The game is essentially, and these are my words, not his, rigged. At least half of it is going to go to people with a lot of influence over large populations. So Gobbins and whoever the second candidate is in PanFam, probably going to get in. The other side of it is Merkel, Chen, and Anominate, who are running for a Goon Swarm, probably going to get in. Maybe their third person gets in, but those two guys, if they're 1 and 2, will get in. And it's funny, I've seen people vote for them, and some people vote Merc first, and some people vote Nominate first. So it's kind of funny. I think that's strategic. to make sure they get enough first votes. I don't know how that's set up, but I did notice some of that happening.
I actually was going to, just as a corollary to that, I was going to suggest, Brisk wrote an article about, how to get elected, essentially. And he said that what matters is being the number one choice. If you're not the number one, then, being the number two, number three, et cetera, is not going to end up getting counted. So if you are a player who wants to throw your support to multiple candidates, and you have multiple characters that can vote, then I would recommend splitting up your number ones, as opposed to putting one person always at one and one person always at two, etc. You can have a couple of number ones on your different ballots.
Well, that's next level organization, because frankly, you don't want to screw that up. But that is, when you have the Imperium voting behind you, they're organized enough to realize that. So they'll put
I'm not talking about those guys. The blocks have it all worked out. I'm talking about the candidates that Brisk was talking about when he said, when you don't have that massive support.
There's two things to worry. Well, 1 second. There's two things to worry about when you're running for CSM. One is the minimums, table stakes. Do I have 1,000 first-person votes? Because it's 800 to 1,000. You have to have that, or you are knocked off. So 1,000, a constituency of 1,000 that want you in first place, not second place, not a nice third place, definitely not a fifth or sixth place. It won't do you any good. You have to have first place votes, 1,000 of them. So you have to have some constituency that can build that. The second thing you have to have, because that's only getting to sit at the table. Now you've got to compete with the other 20 people that have that. And what you must have is a strong draw for second position somewhere. You got to be behind a Gobbins, or behind, or have some secret, I'm on second place on fraternities list. There has to be some source of runoff votes. And then the third thing you have to think about, if you can't get that, is, am I behind the right people? Or is somebody going to get in front of me and absorb all the votes that normally would have come to me? Is that person going to absorb the votes and then fall out of competition taking those votes with them? So for instance, if you're behind someone like, I think someone who's on the border, let me see if I can see who's on the border here. I'm just going to use this as an example, but say you're behind, I can't see the full list here. Someone who's like Mike Azaria, right? Very likable, but you're behind him on certain ballots. He's going to absorb a lot of votes. He may or may not get in with those votes, but he's certainly going to take them away from you. So there is an issue of like, who's supporting you, what position you are in that group that's supporting you, and then ultimately your initial table stakes, which is, the 1,000 first person votes. So there's different elements to running for CSM. It's very strategic. I'll just tell you, when I ran last year, I did it on a whim. I actually didn't decide to do it until days before it was, I think, about to start. So there wasn't a big lead up to it. And what happened was, I looked around and said I could leverage TIS and say everybody that likes the show, likes TIS and whatever, you guys need to put me at number one. And I thought, yeah, I'll do that because I have to. There's no other way. You need that constituency. So I did that to a certain degree. I didn't interfere with the main show, but I did put that out there on some of these side shows. And then in addition to that, because that wasn't going to be enough, was to talk to all the blocks and say, can I actually get a high position on your ticket? And a lot of them, surprisingly, said yes. A lot of them said they would put me pretty high, and a lot of them didn't. They put me kind of like in the middle, which was expected because they're shuffling around politics, right? So the blocks, they have an agenda too. They got to get their guy on and their second guy on, and that's the trouble. If they only had one guy, no problem. They could sell that second seat to anybody that they liked. But they have two that they want. And so what they all do is trade their number ones and number two positions with each other. So those number ones and number two positions all taken up by each other. And that's what really, when I looked at it, I was like, this makes me ill. It's a game I have to play. I literally was like I wasn't depressed, but I was very uneasy about having to ask for votes. But it was the only way to get on, and you had to have something to offer. They're not just going to give you something. Actually, they did for me. They actually gave me positions, again, 4th or 5th or 6th, because I didn't have to give them anything. But at some point, you have to like start trading your positions, your influence for theirs. And that's what made me ill, because it was really like, I'm having to really like whore out TIS in order to get this position, and I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to give it the full effort and the full promises and that sort of stuff. It's very, very difficult decisions, and I ended up really not liking running for CSM at all, because you have to give people something in order for them to give you something, and that's not optimal. And so I was sick of the whole process.
What do you think of the well, there's always some rumors or talk of kingmakers, or people who can arbitrarily or somewhat arbitrarily skew the votes and the CSM members for the wildcard candidates.
Who's this guy, Space whatever? I think I want to get rid of him for good. Yeah. There you go. Negative energy, take it with you. All right, what were we saying?
I've heard some things about certain members of certain blocs who have considerable influence and are able to potentially, well, they're a swing state vote. They're a kingmaker. They can, if they were to put their votes onto somebody, they could make them one of the wildcard slots for the CSM.
Well, the people that have gotten on. Okay, first of all, you have Steve, who's gotten on all the time, and he has like a lot of loyal voters that see him as a knowledgeable person for certain issues like industry and that sort of stuff. So he's kind of got a voter block, but he barely got on, right? I mean, barely. And for other people that got on that were kind of wild cards, you had Olmeca, who is he is, a genius level EVE Online player, and he demonstrated that. So you could not like him if you didn't want to. You could try to humiliate him and make fun of him, but he could demonstrate that he understood what he was doing, and that he had that knowledge. And also he benefited from good relationships with people that had multiple accounts. He himself had, I think it was 80 accounts. That's 80 votes, right? And then he had other friends that helped him that he works with, and they had hundreds of votes. So he was able to put together a small block that was worth hundreds of votes. And then he was able to demonstrate his knowledge, and he did that in front of Reddit, and he had some really good fanfare from that. He ended up building with those things a whopping 3,000 votes, or 3,000 votes, or 3,000 first place votes. And he shocked everybody. Like you can try to dismiss Olmeca, but you cannot dismiss what he put together. And he was up there in front of Legacy's number 1 candidate. So he was like the number 2 or 3 spot. I think number 3 spot. There was Gobbins, there was Aerith, and then there was Olmeca, and then there was Vili. So say what you want. That guy put together, he put together a machine on his own, essentially. Brisk is a different story. Brisk is a charmer, so he puts out something that's charming to Reddit and gets a lot of that credibility. He also has a lot of fans that like him. They like what he does, and so he was able to put together initiatives pretty much, their vote. Initiative's second vote went to Exuki, which was nice because that put him just in. I'm not sure what's going to happen this year with that, but the point is, like, different ways to piece it all together, but you have to do it without hope. You have to do it with determination and with a plan, and that's how you get on CSM. Otherwise, it has to be gifted to you by your constituency, or you have to be put as number 2 by your CEO, executor of a big, not alliance, but coalition, like the whole coalition and the renters that belong to that coalition.
do you think these wild cards, these kingmakers, these swing votes, will put in another wild card candidate this year or two, maybe?
I only know of one kingmaker, and she's a queen, and that is
Sorry,
Lady Scarlet.
Lady Scarlet. There we go.
Yeah, she basically points. She doesn't. She's not a kingmaker. The truth is, she's more of a facilitator, and that's her role in NC Dot as well. She doesn't govern with the will. She's one of the people that is a very sweet woman who doesn't want to have power over people, but she's a facilitator. She takes care of business. So that's why she's so powerful. It's because it's not power for her own will. It's more like she's going to make happen what needs to be made to happen for NC Dot to function. And that takes a ton of pressure off Vince Draken, who is the military leader and the personality leader and the, of NC Dot. And what Vince does, he gives a lot of power to the FCs and says, just, keep everything going. But it's really Lady Scarlet that's the one facilitating all the income coming in and making sure that everything's diplomatically correct and that sort of stuff. So when she says, we're going to put somebody on the CSM, well, that just never happens. She never says, this is who we're putting on the CSM. Because again, it's not for her. She's facilitating the will of somebody else, which is Vince Draken. And he is going to, I don't know what game he's playing with the CSM, if he even plays a game, but they have picked people who have not been the best at showing up for CSM for whatever reasons. That could be personal reasons or whatever, but they're picking people according to their group. So they picked Pfeiffer at one point, they picked Vince at another point, and they picked Killer B at a different point. All three of them at some point either didn't show up or dropped out, or again, good reasons or not. So it's not like, I think they're really just trying to show influence and put people on there they think will help their team. I think Gobbins even said the same thing. Like, yeah, we're putting a person on there because we want our representation on there. So they're doing it tribally. CSM is a tribal body. It's just really twisted. If you have a tribal body, it should be about staking out your tribe's interests. That makes sense. So make it a space council, not necessarily a game development council.
Someone mentioned Kingmaker. I'm here. What's going on, guys?
I love that voice. I know that voice.
Ron.
That voice is Ron. How you doing, man? We miss you here.
I'm good, man. I'm good. I was on eVlog. I was on Jebby's channel last night, I think it was, and we were and Bjorn, and there was a bunch of people there, and we were kind of spitballing around the mechanics of the new ships, right, and the sort of the chain weapon, and it was pretty interesting.
Well, nothing's been released. We don't know anything about it.
Yeah, and that's it's actually almost the definition of spitballing, right? We were just thinking about like comparing the mechanics, right, to the Keepstar, right, and how the DPS works with that, and just kind of making stuff up, and it was pretty fun. Talked for a couple hours last night.
You and Jebby?
Yeah, just on Jebby's channel. He was doing he had Wolfram Alpha open, we were just, thinking about the DPS and how the target selection could work, and it was pretty interesting stuff. Like, I think, all of that kind of stuff is just really fun and new, and, if it could be based on cap, and my idea would be that, it would be some sort of logi killer, right? Like a chain, a logi chain of, is strong, and it's extremely difficult to break, right? So what if, they had some sort of ships that were, able to kind of focus on that and to break that chain and to go after logi, right? Instead of just, F1ing on, the other DPS ships and that kind of thing. Thought it was really interesting.
So it damages all ships that are in part of the chain that's connected in some way. makes people want
Right.
to actually, break the chain and say, okay, don't rep me, rather
So
than have it
if
chain.
if we're spitballing, then I have 4 very specific predictions with regard to the release of these ships, and it's not necessarily about the mechanics of the weapon, but number one, I predict that we're going to see a small, a medium, and a large released at the same time. I don't know precisely which ships, but a small, medium, and a large. Number two, we're going to see a single module weapon system similar to disintegrators. Number three, the ships are going to be shield based. And number four, they should have a remote shield and or capacitor bonus. Those are the 4 predictions I have for these new ships. Anything beyond that, I can't even begin to guess.
Yeah, I agree. It looks, it looked like a rook, right? So it looked like a cruiser size or something.
And the scope video?
Yeah, and the graphic that we were looking at last night.
I'll try to find some stuff to put up here on screen.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's super fun, I think it'll be, distance based, right? Something about, like your primary target and then X, ships with whatever within distance and, that kind of stuff. I think, because obviously they don't want it like huge spider webs, shooting 90 kilometers. So
Could we
I think
see
it'll be fun.
Could we see one of an actual AOE ship, a ship that does damage to a certain area and its surroundings, other than bombs?
I think there's a lot of complications with that because, drone systems and whatnot.
So one thing that is interesting about this is that this weapon system may be smart enough to only attack valid targets, and this may be an area of effect weapon that's usable in high sec. That's a pure conjecture on my part.
I don't think it's going to be restricted to a specific security system.
Yeah, I think it'll be usable everywhere. So as opposed to, because right now, what do we have for AoE? You have bombs and smart bombs. By the way, smart bombs, neither smart nor bombs, discuss. But yeah, I think that we're going to have an AoE weapon usable in high sec.
That's hilarious.
It's true. Smart bombs are neither smart nor bombs. They're not smart. They don't select any targets. They don't do anything. It hits everything, and they're not bombs. It just sends out a pulse.
I like your social circles. Please discuss. Okay, so you guys are spitballing. You had a good time then, Ron?
Yeah, it was interesting. I really like when they introduce these new mechanics, and I know that people grab the pitchforks, and they light the torches, and they want Frankenstein out of the city. They don't want to alter their beautiful game, but I really enjoy this, and I think there's so much to say for being able to balance such a complex game. You know what I mean? Like, imagine, all of the things that have to be put into place and have to be thought about, if you just want to change one little thing, you just want to change smart bomb. Well, all of the ramifications and everything that goes down the list on that, I think it's such a massive amount, that I always think it's super interesting when they introduce something completely new.
Did you see it as the opposite of a Draculavian ship, Ron, where a Draculavian ship is known for its incredible single target focused damage and effects, compared to this one, which could be the complete opposite, where it's focused on multiple target damaging rather than and very poor single target effects?
Well, that's precisely the source of my prediction. This is going to be the inverse.
By the way, here Maxim87 says, is it too much to ask that Triglavians get a balance pass?
Yes.
Yes. Here's the thing about CCP that you should know. It's the little secret that can pay huge dividends. I've said it many times, but CCP will normally leave new stuff OP so that it gets some use, right? It's a little bit of a no-brainer, because if you work really hard on a thing and you put it out there, if it's going to have an advantage over other things, that's fine, because people are going to use that new content. Nothing could be worse than putting something out that nobody uses. So they are slow to balance new stuff, in my estimation.
So yes, things get their moment in the sun, but these are also somewhat specialty ships. They're not usable everywhere for everything. They have very significant drawbacks.
Specifically the Triglavian ships.
Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not just that. It's also they've been around for a while, quite a while actually. And if you look at some of the newer ships, specifically the Genitra, it has already been rebalanced, and the other Triglavian ships haven't been. So that to me points out that CCP is taking a look at those ships and rebalancing where necessary.
The Genitra was not rebalanced. It was balanced before it was released.
Was that before release?
Yeah, it was never available. There was never one in space with any stats other than what it has now.
I stand corrected.
Well, I mean, you're not completely wrong. What happened is they did release it. They just didn't release the ingredients to make it. So you couldn't theoretically build it, even though it was released into the wild.
Right. They put certain pieces of it in, and before they knew for a fact it wasn't ready yet. They knew it needed to be changed, but they didn't let that hold up deployment because they knew that it would take 10 days to build, not all the parts were available, etc. They never intended for it to actually be available with the broken stats that people saw.
They're also working with hold on, sorry. Well, they're also working with this, and I don't know if this is new, but they kind of lock progress on something. And even though they're going to make changes the next week after that, they're going to release with what they locked on. And that wasn't, I don't know if that was always the case. Sometimes they would try to fiddle with the locked deployment of code, and trying to fix things before it actually got into the wild. But what I think they do now is they just release it, broken or not. There's no opportunity to really use it, and they fix it the next week. I think I've seen that happen a couple times with different things. So they have patches that come over right away, but those are more to fix something. I think if they have new products out, they put them out. And I think Fonsway was saying something, and so are you, Vasily, that I wanted to say it right. That these ships are special ships. They're a new race. They have kind of a niche. They're not. I don't think they're fleetware. I think they're, more gang, aren't they? I haven't seen a fleet.
Yeah, they're small gang. They're solo. They are good for these things. Yeah. I mean, disintegrators beg you not to change targets. They're like, please don't make me change targets. Yeah. And then people bring these ships, like an Ikitursa into Abyss for tier 5, not for, obviously Ikitursas are incredible in the Abyss PvP, but they bring them into tier 5 Abyss because they think they're good, and then they die because the Abyss tells you to constantly switch targets, and disintegrators hate that.
Yeah, you pay a penalty for switching targets. You lose damage.
It's literally the tweakiest and most difficult weapon system to leverage properly in that particular setting. So, do they need a nerf? I don't think so. I think that they have their niche. They're excellent at certain things, and they're awful at other things.
I think the Triglavian ships, due to their gameplay style and their nature, and their popularity with the smaller gang groups, it's seen as extremely overpowered because it favors those people. It amplifies those smaller groups much more than it would amplify the average fleet member and somebody who needs to switch targets, because these ships promote coordination. They promote one-to-one fighting. They promote focused fire. So when you put these ships in the hands of people who do these things, they are so much stronger, and it seems they're very overpowered when it's really just player skill.
Oh, maybe not, but one thing is it's not necessarily a bad thing for a smaller group to be able to punch upwards, and that's what these ships really excel at.
Yeah. Ron, have you been having a good time in is it Tarkov?
Yeah, Escape from Tarkov.
A lot of Eve
And
players play that for fun when they're not playing Eve. What's so great about it?
So it's a first-person shooter, right? So it is kind of moving your little man around and shooting other people.
Yeah.
But the Eve sort of thing that people are very adept at in the game because there's loss, right? So when you equip your little GI Joe, right, with a gun and backpack and all this other thing, when you go into the raid and you die, you drop all of that. And normal people, normal players, have a big aversion to that, and they have issues with that, right? It's very traumatic that this gun that you just spent all this time on making and all of these things are now gone because of something you didn't even see, whereas the Eve player is like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, next.
What's the deal with the development of Tarkov? Is it like a AAA game or something? Because I didn't hear about it until you guys were playing it.
Yeah, I mean, it was made by a very small Russian company. It started around 20 people. It's been around for about 3.5 years now, and they're now at about 100 people. And the owner of the company is just really an interesting guy. He doesn't care what anyone thinks or what players. I mean, he cares what players say, but he has a vision for the game, and that's that. They can want certain things and they can complain, but he doesn't care about that. He has a vision and he's going to follow that vision. And he doesn't care what normal players want. He's not going to make the game easier. He wants to make it harder and more difficult. And every iteration, he makes it more difficult. And one of his things is, that the game is not for fun, right? The game is a challenge. And that's, what he's going to do.
That kind of feels like old Eve, right? Eve was merciless and CCP was merciless. They were not like, okay, guys, we hear you. We're going to meet your demands. There was like, nope, this is our game, and if you have complaints, take them somewhere else.
There was just a podcast where he was on, and he had some of the big players. So they just put in this the weight system. So the more things that you carry, the slower you are, and the more difficult it is. But the people that are really good at the game dislike that because they they kill a bunch of people or a bunch of things, and they have, like
loot
200 kilograms on their back, right? And they want to, do that. But so everyone's constantly, change the weight system. It's so taxing and so horrible. And then on this big podcast, one of those players said, so, Nikita, what do you think about the weight system? He said, the weight system is easy mode right now. It's going to get harder.
With that accent.
Yeah. And the player, the players just turn white, like, oh God.
But people respond to that, right? I think.
Yeah. Because his thing is, when it got really, really popular and people wanted to kind of like make it more like Call of Duty, he said no. And he's not going to pander to the kind of general player, right? Because he doesn't need them. He said he has his vision, and it's only going to be so many people, and he's okay with that. He doesn't need 400,000 people playing the game. So yeah, he's staying true to his vision.
Yeah. That is so funny.
One of the famous quotes from Nikita is actually, we are not making this game for you guys. We are making this game for us. You guys are just along for the ride.
Yep.
Isn't that like
players are just along for the ride? Like, this is our game.
This is something that's very interesting because it's I've heard this a lot. What's really popular right now, if you look at Game of the Year, Sakharov or something, Sakharov, I forget.
Sekiro.
That's it, Sekiro. Oof, I was way off.
Yeah, it's
Any
a
further off, it would
Japanese
have been really
Dark
bad.
Souls themed game.
Yeah, right. Dark Souls is another one. But hard games are popular and these days, and I think it's you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of eating chilies. Like if you eat really spicy stuff, you get this euphoria. It's incredible pain, but after the pain comes this euphoria. And I wonder if video games stimulate in the same way, like incredible pain and anguish and torture, and then when it's over or you have that breathing room, you like start to sweat with joy.
It's an incredible sense of achievement, actually, in terms of Tarkov, because of how difficult it is and how complex it is, and how everything is hyper realistic, because the game is set to be hyper realistic. The gunplay is hyper realistic, the ballistics are hyper realistic. There's like 7 different types of bullets for that one weapon that you're using. Everything is hyper realistic. So when you are able to kill another player, steal his crap, and then extract with it, and then you get to the menu, and your palms are sweating, your mouth is wet, and you're like, I did it.
Your
Now
mouth
I'm
is
gonna take a break outside, I'll be right back. That's totally what it is, and it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling.
now I can bag groceries no problem. I survived
Like,
this. Yeah.
you're running to extraction full of loot. Your hands are shaking, your arms are sweating, you don't know what to do next, and then all of a sudden some guy shows up and shoots you in the face, and then you're like, damn it. So it's a really
But
nice game. Yeah.
Ron, there must be something about like it's harsh but fair, and I think Hilmar hit that when he was talking about CCP's approach to EVE Online. It's got to be fair, but it's got to be hard.
Yeah, I mean, Tarkov isn't fair though. It's
Well, the weight
it's
distribution
harsh and it's
thing is-
also blind in that sense, like because it's a first person shooter, but they're sniper rifles, right? So
Mhm.
you can just be walking and just die, and that's it.
Oh, it's
You
like
don't see
ganking.
it, you don't hear it. Yeah, it's like ganking, and but there would be nothing around you, right? It's like it'd be like the Klingon bird of prey, right?
Yeah.
That just uncloaks and kills you, and you're like, oh, okay, well
Thermal
that
scope.
happened.
Yeah. So death is imminent. Death is everywhere. Death can happen at any time. That's still fair.
so
That's still
Yeah,
fair.
that doesn't make it unfair. You have to account for that in your choice.
Yeah, that's
Well,
why
I mean,
sneaking around pays. It pays you to slow down and take precautions
yes.
and prepare.
And what I'm super excited about is, there are several CCP that enjoy Tarkov, and there's several CCP, that are very much in the Dust 514 kind of mindset. And, I'm hoping for a Dust 515,
Save
like that,
dust.
like Tarkov, but Eve, right? It's difficult, it's hard, it's planet based, it would just be amazing.
Well, there is what the London studio is working on, which is whatever Nova has now become that it's not Nova.
Yep, I'm very excited.
Well, the interesting thing is that ganking can be fair, sniping can be fair. That's not stuff that should be eliminated. I've never said get rid of ganking. I consider it a part of the game, but I think the stuff that's unfair is the arcane mechanics that people couldn't know unless you'd been there and told later on, yeah, this is how we do it. We do it like this, then you're like, oh, wow, that doesn't seem intuitive. Like that doesn't seem like the way it should be done. Does
You're
Tarkov have that?
hitting on the poor documentation and the lack of, the tutorials like screw you, here's a ship, now go
No,
die.
I'm thinking of the backwards mechanics, for instance, that basically you have to plant a TCU and shoot it in order for it to be immune.
Yeah, or the what's it called? The webbing to warp or the prop mod to warp. All of these are emergent gameplay. It's like these are the mechanics. Figure out what to do with it, and then the players figured it out, and then CCP can then go and then back document that or leave it up to the players, which kind of I prefer.
So I have a funny story since we're talking about that very specific thing. So the thing I'm thinking about is hyper dunking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which was this sort of abuse of Concord mechanics and how it related to ganking ships in high sec, right?
Well, describe it first for
And
people that don't know.
so if I remember right, it was you would take your 10 characters and you would engage in some fake combat in a solar
Right.
system, and then all of the Concord ships would fly over there to respond to that. And then you would take those 10, characters over to another place, right? And put, your ships there. And then you could kill something, but it would take longer for Concord to go from point A to point B than it would be just to appear at point B. So
Yeah,
it
Concord
was,
spawning rules. The gankers do this all the
yep, yep. And then, there were like some other little things about, leaving empty ships, in space. So after they would, die, they could get in another ship. And it was just
Yeah.
this really convoluted mechanic that was silly. And I think a lot of it's been patched out and whatnot. But
Mm-hmm.
there was one person that was really famous for that. And he, and I remember this was a couple of years ago, about how he would, talk about how this is, emergent gameplay, and all this. And I remember, this emergent gameplay around all these mechanics. And he got banned for like 30 days or something and whatnot. So that person plays Tarkov. And if you can imagine in Tarkov, one of the scummiest things you can do in the game is to camp and extract, right?
Is
So
that like a spawn point or something?
yeah, so there's a spawn point and then there's an exit, right? And if you go and you just camp and exit, so in other words, another player has played the whole raid or whatever, and they've spent 30 or 40 minutes doing all this thing and killing players, and they're right before they're allowed to leave, this person guns them down. It's like it's griefing, right?
Yeah.
So that person is a big griefer in Tarkov. And I thought it was funny, and I just cracked up because, I know that everyone likes to talk about emergent gameplay and this and that, and and this is inventive. But really, some people, like, just want to make sure you don't have fun. Like, that's it. It's really as simple as that.
it's up to the game developer to decide where the line is between emergent gameplay and CCP has defined that line and redefined it a number of times. As players find things, they're like, okay, this was cool, this was fun. Now we're declaring it an exploit, and we may or may not patch it out. If we don't patch it out, it's still been declared an exploit, and from this point forward, if you engage in this behavior, there'll be repercussions. But CCP specifically takes a very light touch to these things.
Well, I think emergent gameplay in this situation would be the opposite. It's having honor. Like, to me, that's what was so impressive about EVE Online is you had pirates that would shake you down for your cargo or ISK payment of the equivalent, but then they would let you go. And that honor, that sense of honor was healthy for them because the next person they shook down would know, if I pay, I'll get out of this and I'll keep my cargo. And so that was a good ecosystem. But that's, to me, the emergent gameplay. Griefing, to me, is like, if you want to build a griefing simulator, like, I want no part of that.
Exactly.
I honestly
Exactly.
don't want to deal with other people's mental illness getting in the way of my
I agree,
entertainment.
man. I agree.
Well, there needs to be some sort of counterplay. There needs to be some sort of answer, a way to address this and deal with this and engage in the game that takes into consideration other players' ability to behave this way. And that is where CCP walks that line. They say, okay, well, there's no way for a player to see this coming. So suicide ganking, for instance. I have described suicide ganking as this. By the time you are getting locked, that the fight was already over. Suicide ganking is not a combat mechanic. It's a planning mechanic. It's math.
Yeah.
It's financial, it's economics. People decide ahead of time what's worth it. They plan it all out. It's the Mortal Kombat fatality. The round is over. You've already lost. Now they're just making it bloody.
Well,
I
it's
I
like
agree
skeet
with
shooting.
that.
That's what I
Yeah.
call it.
And I think the main problem with ganking is that there are no repercussions. Like you lose your little tornado. Like that's ridiculous. It's so skewed.
There's no rep hit. You can come back and
Towards
repeat over and over again.
What?
yeah,
Why?
and
Well, those are the repercussions. It's 100 million is cost. The repercussion is a basic cost that you
That's
can
for a
account for.
war deck,
And
though,
on the
not
and on the
ganking.
other end, yeah, and on the other side, it is the player. It is the target's responsibility to understand the ganker's abilities, because you can make yourself not able to be ganked, or you can make yourself not worth being. There are ways where you can play the game without being. I can definitely say that every single time I have lost to a suicide gank, I can point at the specific decisions that I made that led to that I could have made differently that would have prevented it.
well, you can say that about anything in life, right? Like
Yeah, personal
everything you
responsibility.
could trace back. But what I'm saying is that, within reason, right? So I don't want ganking removed, right? I like ganking, and I also appreciate the amount of complexity and the amount of planning and this and that. But on the same token, I think there are things that can be done to ganking to make it hurt more, right? So
Yes.
let me give you an example. So you have a character that has murdered in cold blood 340 people in high sec. Why are you still allowed to dock there, right? And you know, I know that this won't really like hamper, like Code and these other guys, because I've talked to them about it, right, on the show, and and they said, well, we'll have structures and this and that, but these types of things, right, that are more conducive to like the storyline, right, like you wouldn't let a cold-blooded murderer in Walmart, right? Knowingly, right? So it's like things like this that just make it more difficult or more expensive, or, allowing players to like, quote, purchase, unquote, Concord ships that can follow them around, right? Like if I, had $500,000 and I hired armed escorts, right? An armed security team or whatever to follow me around. Like things like that would be really interesting, right? Because if someone's running Abyssals and they pay X amount of ISK, Concord ships can sit there, right? And just sit there by them. So I think there'd be kind of interesting things that could just make it more, a little bit more level.
Yeah.
Sure.
I
So
think
I've established the position now. Now I can soften the stance. I do think that suicide ganking specifically, is effectively balanced, but I do not think it is fun and or rewarding. I think that there are a lot of tweaks and changes that could be made to it that would make it more engaging on both sides. It is not fun. For the gankers, it may be rewarding because they get what they wanted, but it's a lot of math, and it's not really combat. And for the targets, it's all restrictions, and don't do this and don't do that and don't do the other things. And if you avoid A, B, C, D, and E, then you are either invulnerable to this or simply not a target. So yeah, I do think it needs tweaks. I do think it needs changes, but I don't think that it is entirely too oppressive.
Here's the thing. We got to separate some things out, because we start talking about this as it all gets worked. It all gets worked together into one pot, and it always sounds like we're complaining about ganking. So ganking is something that is just like sniping in Tarkov. It's part of the game. Death is everywhere if somebody's determined to do it. But it's what we're talking about is the price of ganking is too low. In other words, if you were a fisherman, and fishing is a sport where the fish doesn't know if it's eating a worm or if it's eating a hook, and so it gets taken, and it's part of the game. But the fisherman is freezing his butt off. He's usually in the water, And he has to take certain precautions to do that. We can appreciate that, but it's an uncomfortable process. He's not inside of a building with a warm fire listening to classical music and having the rod out the window. Do you know? So there needs to be like a bigger trade-off. It can't just be pure comfort for people who are setting up this thing that is a well-oiled machine at this point, right? All that knowledge is just transferred to the next guy that's going to do the same thing. And there hasn't been, I haven't seen much that's complicated their lives in that practice. So, hey, why not pay a higher price?
The evidence of what you're saying, the evidence that this is true, is what recently happened to Pirate. If anyone read the well-publicized internal email from the individual who effectively disbanded the group, he said that Pirate was intended to be, PvP, hunting and killing, etc. And they fell to farming, literally farming. He said, we got players who aren't skilled, who are just handed the tools and handed the knowledge and sit on trade hubs and farm high sec. They farm the trade hubs specifically. They don't move and don't do anything. And he personally, and I guess the people that he felt he was representing, didn't think that that was rewarding or engaging or honorable or respectable, and wasn't what they formed that organization for. So the fact that this happened is evidence that what you're saying is true. It's too easy to get into it and be successful.
I don't.
Fun sway.
Amar makes Amar makes a point here in chat. -10 status used to be something to be considered crippling to a player back in the day, and I haven't heard anybody complain about -10 sec status lately. Like, what happened to it? Do you just buy your way out of it with those vouchers that they released during?
There are limitations to it, but again, yeah, it's not enough of a hit. But yeah, Rich wanted to say.
Okay, you said that the moment you get ganked, you failed all of your planning, and there's nothing on God's green earth that can save you. And somebody mentioned about having a police force or something to hunt down these gankers. I disagree with the point that there's nothing on God's green earth that can save you. I think.
Yeah, that wasn't an absolute statement,
no,
but you're
no
right.
one said that, Rich. No.
Well, okay, but okay, you
said I implied
it,
so I want to.
You implied
I want to hear what he has to say.
Ganked. Okay, I think it is fully possible to have an escort save you. We've talked about it before. We've theorized potential ways of saving people. I think I think there is a way to save people, and that is if you follow somebody around with a bumping ship, you can bump people out of Catalyst and Talos blaster range, and you can save them. It's definitely possible. It's just a matter of outplanning your lack of planning.
Rich, remind me where you live so I can burn it to the ground. I'm just kidding. I've known Rich for a long time. I love Rich.
He makes a good point.
So I'll give you an example, because I actually had to deal with this about a few weeks ago when we moved one of the Sotillos out of Jeddah for the Ignatian complex. So we have a Sotillo that's got to come through out of Jeddah, which means it's got to be in a freighter, which is going to get scanned as it undocks, and it's going to be noted. So what we did is we farmed about 15 dudes. We put them in Blackbirds, Griffins, and Falcons, all with Galente racial jammers, and we gated it where it needed to be. We did that because 99% of all the ganks are blaster ships. Certainly people could make the choice to do something different if they were planning for it, but our assumption was we'd be able to jam off enough DPS that the freighter would be fine.
Did you consider having, say, a Macarial or several Macarials to bump the freighter out of the way? I've seen somebody harass
How do you
Code doing
bump
that.
the freighter out of the way?
Well,
I would like to address Rich's point though when you guys clear it up.
Okay, how it's done is I have seen a video of somebody who very much dislikes Jason Cushion, who was in Code, now he's working under Goons, who very much disliked him, and they waited for him to begin a gank, and then they rammed their bumping Macario straight into the target he was trying to gank, bumping that target way out of range of the Catalyst's blaster range. The Catalysts failed, and the Catalysts, weren't able to kill the target and died.
That would be the most unreliable strategy imaginable.
Yeah, that's so. Let's assume for the moment that there is.
The time of the suicide gank is 10 seconds. right? You have 10 seconds to like start, MWing at the freighter to hit the bump and for the freighter to move outside of the optimal of the catalysts and catalysts that are webbing it, right? Like the timing on that would have to be so perfect to achieve it. It just seems absolutely
Right. So let's assume for the moment that this is a workable strategy. I don't know if it is or isn't, but having a bumping fleet, with you, or some other kind of protection, whatever it is, again, that kind of fits into what I said, because that is planning ahead of time. That is being prepared. That is having that stuff. Again, once you're being locked and shot, if they are successful, it's because you didn't account for it ahead of time. And having that, the bumper there, or having whatever other protection, is something you had to consider before you undocked. This is suicide ganking at its core. It is the combat portion of it is not where the actual gank goes down. It goes down long before that.
So, Billy, what do you think about what we were talking about a little bit ago about the cost on the suicide gankers side versus the rewards? Do you think that there's a balance, or could be some changes, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not a fan of suicide ganking, period.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that one, but like,
He's civilized.
I mean, what about just to do it? I mean, I know that there's some.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's like the fact you can roll up 15 catalysts and gank pretty much anything is unfortunate. I mean, that's 150 mil, right? So
Right.
the bar to suicide gank is so low. But I don't know how you increase that. I honestly don't. Like, because then you have to go into like ship balance, and then you start talking about ship balance for freighters and ship balance for the ship shooting freighters. Like, that gets super crazy, super quick.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think this is a great segue. I could not believe what I was reading the other day when, like the top story or whatever on our Eve was pirate imploding. And I was, wait, what? And I started to read into it, and Fonzu, you just kind of mentioned it a little bit. But so pirate has just kind of disbanded. They got into a war or something, like some kind of like friendly slap fight or whatever with another group, and they just kept getting baited or something, and
Dead
took
terrorists.
too many losses. And
I think the other group, I think, is Dead Terrorists.
Internal drama as well.
right,
Yeah, I'll actually, I'm gonna find the information on Reddit. I'll post it in Twitch chat in a moment.
There was the Dead Terrorists war that resulted in the Pirate HQ being destroyed, and there was also the recent wormhole fight, which resulted in Pirate being destroyed.
I would want to address a comment in chat, and it was a little bit distasteful, but like he made a valid point. He compared it to real life crime, and the difference between real life and EVE Online in this case. Yes, it's a simulator. Yes, it's supposed to be as realistic as possible, but EVE Online is about violence. Violence is celebrated. Killing is celebrated. They write literal songs about it. I mean, killing is just a means of communication, and so on and so forth. So, in real life, if it was a matter of, oh yeah, well, let's blame the victim, that's extremely distasteful and a hot button topic. But in this game that we play, violence is the name of the game. So I think that that's not necessarily a valid comparison.
and I like one thing that Emar, said earlier about the -10 sex status. I really wish that was more valuable, right? More, you had to play around that somehow, more than just going and buying tags.
But again, I'd want to repeat what I said earlier, which is the gameplay could be better. It could be improved. There could be more agency given to the targets. Something that they could do in the moment if they hadn't prepared properly that may work and may get them out of it if they do everything exactly right. Now, they're given a second chance to perform perfectly, and I think that would be helpful. I'm loath to suggest a specific mechanic, although I've heard many, and some of them seem pretty good. But yeah, I think that could use an update. but it's not quote unquote broken as is. It's just not very good.
All right. We got only 30 minutes left before we take off, but there's a question that came up by Vasily that I wanted to cover. And since he's here, I'm going to ask him to either read his message or reiterate the topic that he wanted to get some advice on. Vasily, are you here?
Yeah, thank you, Matterall.
Sure.
So I've got this corporation, and we're a rather specialized corporation. We focus on running invasions in ISAC, and we are moderately successful as such. But I would like to grow further, and I have an alliance to go with that corp, and I haven't really done much with that quite yet. I'm starting to, right, as of last week, and I do have a vision with that alliance, which is that if you bring together multiple corporations with a specialization, with a core business, then each corporation could hold expertise in that field while sharing in each other's content. Now, my question or questions are, in general, how does one increase the recruitment and retention rates of, well, any corporation really, but maybe even more so for a specialized corporation? And how can I convey Alliance's vision to other corporations and invite them to join? I believe in this thing, which I call critical mass, which is a point where I can start delegating some of the corp management tasks, and the corp can somewhat keep itself going while I focus on perhaps more of the alliance side, or focus on other corporations, or anything else that I think might help the general goal of just growing this group. In short, I run a corp and an alliance. What do I do? How do I get better at this?
You need a pitch video.
A pitch video.
So
Yep.
recruitment and retention are two different things, and you cannot approach them the same way. Recruitment is about visibility more than anything in this. How you recruit is entirely based on how you want to recruit and who you want to recruit. If you want to recruit super high SP guys, you've got to do it in specific ways. If you just want the average dude who can engage in abyssal stuff, then you got to do it that way. If you are taking newbies, you do it different ways. So you need to determine who your target recruit is before you even really get going. Once you've kind of determined that, then you need to engage in activities that are going to increase your visibility to that group. So if you're going after PvP guys, often the number one way to help your recruitment for PvP players, which is what I know most, is content videos. So videos of you going into a fight, kicking ass, taking names, and your logo plastered at the front kind of thing. Because people watch that and they go, I want to be a part of that. And then recruitment comes to you. If you're an abyssal guy, I don't know, you need to be somewhere along kind of the abyssal chain of thought, I guess, would be my guess. So I don't know exactly, but you need some ways to increase visibility, and you need some way to say we're the best at this. We're the group you should want to join if you're doing these things. Then, if you want to talk about recruiting corporations at your alliance, you've got to give them a reason. What's the reason to join this alliance of corporations to do this abyssal stuff? And then if you want to work on retention after that, that's much more about providing continual content and interesting reasons for people to log in and stay with your corp.
I get that. I have a hard time. Visibility is one thing. It's a good thing you mentioned, because there's the recruitment channel. People have been dropping mobile depots in systems since forever, and I tried that. All kinds of things. I don't have the skills to make a video yet, I should perhaps say. Maybe I should look into that. But explaining the vision, even if I have the visibility, That's a difficult thing to do. How do I convince a
Okay, well, let me put it
person?
like this. Have you written out your vision in your Corp description yet?
Yes.
Okay. Where can you link it right now?
Try to in any case. So I've got the corp description. How do I link this? You can just look up the
Copy
tickers that
paste.
are in my name.
Copy pasted it into the voice chat, public voice here.
Vasily, you're a Abyssal Corp. Is this for new players or is this for experienced players?
This is for experienced players. The invasions is not the abyss; it's the invasions that have a barrier of entry. The smallest sites in there are called minor conduits, which are group PvE content. We run them in Lashak's, and Lashak has some skills required, obviously.
Also
So
requires Omega. That's not alpha accessible.
Very much the case.
you need to, since it's running these invasion sites, it's about making money. You need to look for people who want to make money, and in those areas, what kind of people will you attract? What kind
I
of
mean,
people that want to make money
I
attract videos?
I wouldn't go with that premise necessarily. These sites are not only about making money. I mean, you can tune much Eve content to any particular goal. It can be training, it can be camaraderie, it can also be
I,
money, it can be all of these things.
A lot of
I
the people that engage in these activities don't do it for money.
well, and Villy, I think just kind of hit it right, which is, hey man, Vasily, I'm really interested in this. I'm interested in Abyssal. How do I find out more? Well, you should have maybe like a little one-page website with like a little 30-second video with like instructions or something, that you can link in chats, right? Like that you can give, you can hand off, and that has your vision and that kind of thing, right? Like, I think, when I say a video, I mean, don't think, NASA recruitment video, right? Think, something that you can put together because, with abyssals and high sec, the number one question, right, from a player, is going to be, what about logistics? Oh, well, hey, we got the fits. We've got, the ships to move. We'll get your stuff here to there. That, making it easier for them so they can just come in, right? And just a little, video showing, hey, this is what we're doing and this is my vision, and, a little paragraph, right? Like, contact so and so in game and that kind of thing, and you're good.
So you're like moderately RP heavy.
Yeah, somewhat. I like narrative to the things that we do. Certainly not the hardcore role players that the guys at Arataka Research Consortium are.
Right. So how do I put this? Generally, when you're trying to create something, half-assing it is the worst possible thing to do. And don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, what I'm trying to say here. If Arataka is the best, deep RP community, why do you think they're succeeding, right? Now look at so what you're saying is that I'm going to do some RP, but not really too much, right? So the people that want to do RP, they're going to go there. The people that just want to chill and have a good time, um, who's the best ISK per hour corporation for Abyssal PVE right now?
So the other question that you have to ask yourself is, how are you differentiating yourself from existing organizations, alliances, coalitions, corporations? If you're trying to do something that someone else is already doing and they're more developed and more mature than your organization, then why are you doing it? So if I want to run my own corporation, I have to have a reason for people to join me as opposed to the people who are better at it. So maybe it's because the feel inside the corp, the social group is different, or maybe I'm focusing on players of a specific age, new players, mid-range, old players, etc. And you may decide. So Arataka is not a corp. Arataka is a group. I'm not even necessarily certain how they define themselves. I know they have an alliance, but you can be a part of that. and and plug into an existing framework. But starting from the ground up, without planning ahead of time before you go live, doing something that someone else is already doing, I wouldn't expect success.
Basically, what we're trying to say is you need competitive advantage. You need a reason for people to choose you, or someone else is doing something similar. So, you need to determine what that competitive advantage is, because otherwise, you're always going to be in the shadow of your competitor. And Eve is a competitive game, right? So, and I hate to put it like this, but your strategy could literally be just mass recruitment. Your strategy could be, um, you know, the 3 abyssal fleets at once. The strategy could be, we're always a fleet up. It could be the most is per hour. It could be the dankest fits. Like, you guys can pick what you want your strategy to be, but you need to know what that strategy is.
It has to be something that someone else isn't already doing, or that you're doing better than someone else is already doing. It's got to be one of those two, or there is no reason to sign up with you.
Okay, those are very good points. Thank you. Then let's assume that the recruitment goes well, better than it does now. It doesn't do terribly. Um, what do I do to retain the attention of my members?
Content. You have a
Uh,
plan.
Consistency plus innovation. Uh, threw them in have to actually be not a bait and switch, meaning that if you say you're doing it and it's fun, then you have to actually do it consistently and it has to actually be fun. That's number one. And number two is adding, and now we're also doing this, now we're also doing that, and deciding when to kind of FIFO out some old content. It's like, well, we were doing this, but that's not fun anymore, or there's something better or whatever. But it is consistency, keeping the things that brought the people in and making them actually what you promised them to be, and bringing and adding new stuff all the time on a regular basis.
Well, interesting. Because otherwise, if all day, every day, what you do is let's go kill some stuff in the shacks, people get bored of that within a month. They need something to keep their interest, right? So it's like, all right, next Saturday we're doing, PvP roam into wormholes. Next Saturday we're doing filaments. Like it does. You don't have to do it every single day. You don't have to try new things. But if you don't try new things, eventually people will just get bored as shit and they'll leave.
And
Yeah, there's
maybe
got to
that's your
be.
plan. You could say, well, we're a revolving door. We bring players in who don't know things. We show them how to do things, and they move on to other stuff. And we continue to recruit, and we're successful because we are part of the pipeline. And that's great. That works if that's your goal. But if you intend to retain the same players as opposed to retaining just your overall numbers, then that requires a little bit more effort.
What are people going to do with all the things they've made from doing these invasions with their shacks and all their ships? What are they going to do with all that gain that they've made? How can they turn that gain into, well, something else? And what can you provide to keep them there?
Yeah, one question that I always ask someone when they say, I want to do this, I say, why? And if their answer is because I like it, then that's great. Or because I want to learn this, or because of that, then that's great. But if their answer is because I want to do this other thing, then I'm like, well, then why are you doing this first thing first? You should just do the other thing that you want to do. Don't do thing A so that you can do thing B. There is a fallacy in that people feel that they must work up a whole lot of funds to get into the sort of content that they want, and they have to do something else first. I have to mine to get the minerals to build the thing, to get the money, or to build it, whatever it is. But Eve is not about that. It may have been like on day zero when nobody had anything, you had to mine to get the minerals because nobody had them. But now it's not like that. You can silo yourself off and you're like, I want to do this, and I'm going to start doing that exact thing on a low level and then move up.
Vasily, I think you got a lot of really great feedback, and I am eager to hear what you have in like a month. I would love to see like a little, like a little one-page website or something, or with the
I'm also going to
information.
say
I think that'd be really
two
cool.
other things. Also, just going to say one or two other things. First off, what is the name of your corporation?
too long.
Mrinket.
What do you mean?
No, it's Union Provisional Succession Enforcement Tactical. Like I said, a mouthful. There's a thought behind that.
Billy, check
Okay.
your voice chat.
No, I know what it is. I looked. But what I'm saying is the fact you haven't said that corporation name 5 to 15 times in the process of this conversation is a problem. Like, if you want to push your corporation, you need to be pushing a corporation. Every time I'm on here, guess what I'm talking about? Did you go to the CCT yesterday? You should have. But you know, like, you are the salesman for your corporation. If you're not comfortable saying your corporation's name, then choose a new fucking corporation name or something. Like, you got to get out there and push your shit, man. Like, it's on you more than anyone else.
And you could go around saying upset because like that's why you made that name.
Yeah,
and you can call
that's what I
yourself
do.
that. It just has to be it just has to be catchy.
That's what I do. That's why I made the ticker like that.
But don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the ticker, like the corp name, is wrong necessarily. But what I'm saying is that you need to be out there every day saying, "You guys joined Upset. Have you seen what Upset's doing?" Like, yeah, Upset. We did this, Abyssal thing yesterday. It was fucking awesome. We had like 15 dudes. It was great. Yeah, you know what Upset's doing? Upset's doing awesome. Yeah. Have you heard about Upset? Like, if you're not willing to, you gotta put your name out there over and over and over again to get into people's minds. Like, it's just, I hate to say it's marketing, but it's marketing, right?
It's straight
Okay,
up
I get that.
marketing.
I just misunderstood. I thought you were asking for the full name of the corporation. I usually do just go upset in recruitment channels and such.
I mean, I don't
But-
want to bring up the most successful recruiting / marketing thing in Eve, but I mean, you guys may have never heard this, but is Dreadit recruiting? Because I was just wondering.
So yeah, you personally don't have to be the one recruiting, but someone's got to be. You have to have a recruiter core of one or more people, and that person, whoever it is, whether it's you or someone else or 10 people, have to be saying that name again and again in all the right places and some of the wrong ones.
It doesn't matter if you have the best infrastructure setup and all this. If you can't attract people by your charming personality or your excellent quality in marketing and advertising, it's going to be difficult to get people to look at you.
Well, I mean, you also
You know
have
what you can do? Start a fake beef with Arataka or something. Like, say that, fucking rumors are that they're fucking collaborating with the Triglavians or something. Like, make some shit
There
up
you
if you
go.
have to. Get some fucking visibility going. Like,
I like that.
Craft an interesting narrative, true or not.
There, and you have Fonzui. Recruit that guy into working some narrative for you. It'd be fun.
I don't know. I'm sitting in a room with Ron, and you're telling him to talk to me about narrative. I mean, Ron, you're the master of narrative.
Oh, I love it. I love narrative, man. There's
Ron never steps out of character.
Yeah, that's me.
I mean, Ron hasn't even logged into Eve in a year, and he's still the master of narrative.
I know.
Year.
How's that? How's that other game you're playing? What is that game you're playing?
What other game? He's just doing research for Eve. That's all.
The saddest thing I would say is I missed all. I logged in for a couple of days because I streamed. I just streamed the big fight the other day.
Is that the one we were in, or is that the Imperium?
Be. Oh no! So everyone was there except for the goons, except for Imperium. But it was a great fight. It was Pan Fam versus Legacy.
Yeah, I was there.
It was good stuff. It was good stuff.
It
I
was a really good
really
fight.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Over in Astra House. Astra House. Is it that one? Or the Vindictive Fort?
Yeah, Vindictive Fort, I think it's one.
Yep. Vindictive. Yeah, I mean, it was. I just loved seeing all the, everyone undocking and ships, and I loved that
It was a really good fight.
The first half of the fight, I thought Pam Fam had it. They had, they had strong positioning, and then because I was, I don't listen to intel, I don't, ask for anything. I'm just, observing it, and I really enjoyed the fact that it was almost like like a football game or something, because
Yeah.
you couldn't tell who was going to win, right? Like the first half, Pan Fam, like I thought they had it. They, position, everything, the numbers, everything, and then slowly, like, wait, what? And then you see, a fleet warp off, and you're like, oh wait, hold on, why? Yeah, that was a great fight, and I love seeing that kind of stuff. So glad that that happened.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can tell you're a little out of touch. It's Panda Fam now. Panda
No. It's not Panda Fam. Well, it's still Pan Fam, but then you've got Panda Fam as well.
I think we kind of coined that, right? Like, sort of, over the summer war. Like, that's what we were kind of calling them, is Panda Fam.
Yeah.
I just want to say there's a lot of good information. I want to thank you guys for that. Try to summarize it also in the chat. Not in any particular order. Craft a narrative, which is probably one of the later points made. Exposure. Occasional refreshing content, perhaps weekly. Again, exposure. Make a video or website. Redefine competitive advantage. I think I may have done this better in the past than I'm doing in the later weeks, so I should get back on top of that. Again, exposure.
Well, just keep in mind.
I just checked, right? Upsetisrecruiting.com is not taken.
Since you are primarily PvE focused, you'll have to adjust your strategy to be one that it targets PvE players and people looking to make ISK and run invasion sites. You just don't try and use the same format as, say, a PvP group does. That will not work. Not in my opinion, at least.
I get that. I'm going to have to find my way through that, but this has given me some direction.
Honestly, all groups and even mostly recruit the same. It's about visibility, accessibility, content, reasons to log in. It's not some like magic formula that's different to your PvE. It's how many recruits are getting, how.
I don't know, Billy. Showing off sick frags of invasion ships, would that make a good video?
Yeah.
That'd be fun, dude. I like it. I like the thought of it.
For people who are interested in that, yeah.
Give me some sick frags of Tama Slave 001.
Wow, that's why somebody's going to make the video.
Well, thanks for the advice. That was how to build a corp, how to recruit, how to maintain the people that you already capture. And that's something I want to pivot to real quick here in the last few minutes. How do you win a run for CSM, Billy?
Jesus.
Block vote, right?
As somebody who's lost without a block vote, let me tell you, but visibility, have a competitive advantage, have some policies that people can kind of get behind and have an identity and have a reason for people to vote for you over somebody else.
It's kind of the same thing, right? Like, that's what I was
Yeah, which is, I assume, why you asked the question, right? It's
Yep. Name recognition.
I like that.
You got to come up with like a platform that's not really a thing because it's not really how the CSM works, but nobody else knows that, right? So you got to have a platform and a good YouTube video. You got to have a great YouTube.
Really, should they really be starting beef with another group that is starting, even if it's fake beef, even if it's fake drama, should they really be getting that kind of dirt to get attention? I mean, is that the right visibility?
It can be, yeah.
I mean, whether everybody loves you or everybody hates you, they're all saying your name.
As long as they're talking about you, right? That's and
that gets blurred if it comes to.
Call me anything you want, just don't call me late for dinner.
Yeah, Rich is like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I do really like the example that Onsui gave.
It is much better to be hated and despised than it is to be unknown and.
Yeah, and I do like the example Onsui gave. Like I said, I think the Arataka guys, they wouldn't get mad if I hooked into their narrative and going
No,
like,
of
they
course
might be
not.
working with the Trigs, and like they're cool guys. I know some of them. I hang out on their Discord. If you don't want to join me, they're probably the group. I like them. What can I say?
You should definitely talk to their leadership. They're extremely accessible, but you should note that if you want to be opposed, in universe opposed to Arataka, then you are going to most likely have to side with the Triglavians against Edencom. And that means not doing minor and major conduits, because that's killing Triglavians and siding with Edencom.
No, you can play it in
we have
Dutch.
different reasons for doing so. Let me put it that way.
Careful, RP's going to limit your choices.
Sorry?
Yeah, he's trying to trap you right now. It's like no. I feel like
Listen
we
to
believe
him.
the Arataka Research Consortium has been, siphoning funds from Edencom that were destined to, fight the Triglavians. They're putting on a good PR show, but it's obvious to everyone in the, universe that obviously this is a fake group. If you really want to get involved and stop the invasion, this is where you need to be.
I was only
So
playing off what he said,
Love it.
because he said that he was going to side with the Triglavians, so I was going to
you can play it a
double
ton of
down on
different
that.
ways. As long as you have some form of, how do I put this? As long as you have a narrative, you're fine.
I'll come up with something.
But yeah, usually the RP community is one of the more engaging, and if you want to play with them, they will always, where they're like, "Oh yeah, don't play with us." Like, it's one of those.
They're very inclusive. They're not judgy. If you play, they'll play back.
Right, exactly. They see through the role play because they do it themselves, and they leave the person for who he is.
It's somebody creating stories with them, and that's always it's. I don't want to say exhausting, but it's hard work creating the story. And if somebody's gonna help you create stories together, very few RP communities are against them.
Exactly, and that's why you should all vote Dutch Gunner for CSM.
Yeah, Dutch Gunner is a member of Arataka. He's an FC.
Corporation.
One at a time there.
Sorry, Villy, go ahead, please.
That's what I was going to say. Is that you said you should, vote Dutch Gunner? But what I was actually saying is, don't you mean that's why you should join Upset Corporation? You got to work in your
Yeah, is
Well,
Upset
yeah, that too.
recruiting? I mean, I was just curious about that.
Upset is in fact recruiting.
There you go. Look at you.
In all seriousness, though, I do think Dutch Gunner would make a great CSM candidate. I'd like to see more of that stuff in the CSM.
Yeah, Dutch is the primary FC for Arataka. He's very well spoken. He understands what he's talking about. He has stated his platform, as it were, many times as to be a representative of any player, as opposed to a specific player. He has his own initiatives that he, has internally come up with, that things that he wants to push, but he will push any initiative that people bring to him that has merit. He is the man of the people.
So is he like the RP kind of guy? Like,
he can
be.
Doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, wouldn't it be better, right, to kind of focus on, I'm the RP guy, right? Like, I can speak for the RP people.
He has that audience. Everyone knows what he's about.
You're thinking of two different people.
Like, I don't want somebody speaking for me that's not an expert in the because that could end up. I mean, CCP kind of knows, right? They'll filter that out themselves. They're good at what they do, but.
You're thinking of two different people, though, Ron. The RP guy is Kami or Kami. I don't know if it's Kami.
You're RP guy.
Ikami. IKAME.
There he is. Comey. I called him Kami. That's really bad during an election, isn't it? Especially in America.
Oh, Lord.
I just glazed over that part.
Yeah. All right. So Comey is running as an RP character. And Dutch he's an FC for
Arataka.
Arataka. Yeah, I call him Ark. I can never remember what Arataka is.
Yeah, but I'm like, it's great for like a lore expert to be on the CSM.
Yeah.
Nothing against that. I don't want a lore expert.
Why is that great? Tell me why that's great for
Well-
player representation to have a lore expert.
Well, I mean, the lore itself is what draws a lot of people into MMOs to begin with, and everybody loves. Well, I mean, I
You think
everybody,
anybody's
but, you
in
know,
EVE
I
Online?
like the lore.
You think
right?
somebody
I like digging.
somebody joined EVE Online because they heard the lore was really interesting?
That's a thing.
Honest
Like in the
question.
ads and advertisements, yeah. I mean, you watch some of the videos CCP puts out. Yeah, you can get into Eve for the lore, right? For the missions and
I would say it's a secondary. You come here and you're like, this is a big universe. Let me find out about it. Oh, this is interesting, this lore backstory. But I don't know if anybody's drawn in by, did you hear there's this thing called a Triglavian?
Not at all. That's you putting your biases on it. There's lots of people that are interested by the RP.
Yeah, but seriously,
that's
people
come for that.
They come for it. I haven't heard that before.
Because you haven't heard it doesn't mean it's true. Because I've heard it before. And,
you have? Okay.
It's important to understand the galaxy is full of 1,000 different playstyles with 1,000 different people in 1,000 different mindsets. Everything is true at different variations. Is the RP of Eve the number one thing that draws people in? Probably not. But is it relevant? 100%.
Yeah.
I want Manic to finish what he was saying because so that I can argue against it. He was saying, he says it's good to have a lore guy on the council, but, and then let's have the second half of it so that I can argue.
That's Manixar, not
yes, Manic Velocity.
Well, the but was I also don't want the lore guy to be like putting like insight into like small game PvP or something like or low sec. Like you don't know anything about that. You could just say like, well, that's not my field of expertise. I don't want to comment.
Okay, so to respond to that, I don't think that it is fair to pigeonhole someone like that. He doesn't call himself the lore guy, and I don't think that we should either. He understands PvE mechanics, he understands PvP mechanics, he understands people and the ability to communicate and collect information. I mean, the CSM members are a conduit to CCP, and mind you, they're not the only one, but they have CCP's ear regularly. They've established, dialogues with individual, members and teams. And when a player or group of players comes to them, if they're a proper council member, then they'll listen and digest. And if you have a case that you want to make, that you have fully fleshed out, you've made a presentation, you made a business case, you have numbers, you have suggestions, you understand why it's balanced. If you bring that to a CSM member that's worth their salt, they will look at that, see its value, and bring it whole cloth to CCP.
Fonzu, I'm gonna let you finish.
No, go ahead. I am finished.
Okay, thanks, Kanye.
Sure, Ron, go for it.
No,
thanks, Kanye.
Actually, I mean, rather than just think of someone as like a lore expert, but I agree though with Manic that an RP player is excellent, like an excellent choice, because I think for lore experts, like I would look at, like the ISDs, right? Like, or that kind of thing. But for, being able to speak as a representative, like the old Roman senates, right? Like that you had to live within, the people that you were going to represent. I would think of, like as someone that speaks for the RP community, who's in the RP community and can kind of, bring up those issues, right?
I reject the notion that you must be fully immersed in a particular type of gameplay in order to represent the players. I feel that an intelligent individual who is dedicated to being representative is capable of understanding when information is clear and well presented and well balanced, and is able to be a filter and say, I'm going to use my clout, or not clout, but I'm going to use my dialogue. I'm going to spend this capital. Like if someone has brought this to me, it makes sense. It may not have come from me, but I only have my own initiatives. This person has an initiative. This group has an initiative. It makes sense. I'm going to bring this to the people that I know that can actually act on it. I don't think that's inappropriate.
That is an excellent point, Fonzui. And it is really, that is the crystal of the difference between sympathy and empathy, right? So sympathy is, I understand your point, I feel your point, and I can represent your point. Empathy is, I am with you, right? Like, I am part of this. And that, I think, is what really, can be used as like a true kind of speaker or a conveyor of the points of that group. You know what I mean? Like, I can have sympathy for, our peers and this and that, and I can understand their problems and I can speak to their problems. But for me, if I was immersed in that, world, then I could truly have empathy for their problems. And
It's funny.
So are we saying that we only have 10 empathetic slots? And we can only represent maximum of 10 different play styles, and everybody else can just get asked out?
Hold on a second. Hold on. I want to put the brakes on for a second, because here's a point that I think... open mic. Who's got the open mic? Huvenius. Turn off that mic. All right. I think we got him. It seems like null players... I'm going to go back to my tropes. Null players say, hey, we can represent a lot of different stuff, including high sec, right? Like, we can understand their concerns and put them forward to CCP. But you never hear a high sec person running saying, look, I'm a high sec player, but I can represent null as well.
But my thing is, I'm not...
Can I take this one?
Yes, please.
Is that not true because high sec players don't go to null, but null sec players go to high?
That's a very good point, Billy.
All right, that was too easy. I think.
Yeah, but I think
that was no fun at all.
I don't know if you kind of missed my point, but I think a more clearer picture of the point I'm trying to come across is that take Izuki for example. There's no way Billy could have represented wormhole community like Izuki did, correct? Without Izuki on there, there'd been a lot of stuff still in the dark about what's going on in wormholes. And that's what an expert brings to the table, that someone that's just getting insight from people, or like, hey, I wish this was changed, or wish this was better, brings, right?
That's a willing expert. They've had experts on there that haven't said any of that stuff. Noobman from, I think, Hard Knocks was criticized for, hey, he knew all that stuff and he wasn't putting it on the table. So,
but that's not really fair to, like... Noobman was not a candidate. Noobman was literally leaking everything on the CSM to his high command. Like, to compare Noobman to, anyone else is an unfair,
I just feel like you don't just say that a wormhole candidate, you say a willing wormhole candidate, a candidate that's actually an honest broker. It's giving Izuki more credit than just being a wormhole candidate.
To say that expertise is a required component of representation means that there's only 10 expert slots available total, and I reject that notion.
Well, normally I would too, but in this case with CSM, I believe it's important to have experts talking with CCP.
Yeah, gameplay experts.
What could be lore experts?
Not this one thing. Experts in the world of EVE. I have been around. I have talked to a lot of people. I'm good at understanding things. I'm good at making connections and establishing dialogues. Like, that is what a representative does. If they have expertise in a specific thing, then that's something that they can add in addition to that. But the primary role is to be a representative.
So, Matterall, I just wanted to, a time check. You were talking about that you had to go or something, or time, but, see where you were at on that.
Oh, you're no fun, Ron.
No, but, I just want to respect Matterall's time.
Right, and we can all continue the conversation on the Discord, right?
Of course, yeah.
Really,
yeah.
You sure can.
Not really, no.
Yeah, TSS is Discord.
Yeah, maybe I'll stream later. Who knows?
Well, you're going to talk about the CSM on your Tarkov?
Poor Ron.
I mean, I know Villy's running, but is anyone else even running that's worth it besides? I mean, is Dunk running? Because that's really the
No,
only two
Dunk's not
people that
running.
matter.
No, Dunk is out.
The only people that matter. What about the other candidates? My God.
Like who?
Thank
Yeah,
you. I'm a
that's
candidate.
Oh, did you just fall for Ron's bait like hook, line, and sinker?
Billy.
Wait,
I mean, I don't know how you're going to carry that whole CSM by yourself, buddy. I mean,
Did it last year? I'll do it again.
Listen, it's okay, Billy. If I get in the CSM, I will.
I appreciate the
What?
help. Yeah, it'd be good.
There's free healthcare in Canada. He's going to be able to handle it. He's going to carry that weight.
yeah, and if stuff goes wrong, you can always have your voter base removed.
You what?
yeah, I agree with that. That's part of it. Yeah, for sure. Just like the Germanic tribes did not like the Roman Senate, so they ousted them.
That's what happens.
Yeah, that's what happens.
28 stab wounds, huh?
A2 Brutix?
Is there even a low set guy running or trying to run? I know, like every year,
There's
there's
two of them
normally.
at least.
Okay.
I could tell you my proposal if you want.
Please, Juvenius, please talk about your campaign.
Hold on a
So
second. You're not back. Oh, Goon Swarm Federation.
yeah, but don't let that misguide you of what I'm trying to achieve.
Before you go ahead and talk about it, I want to compliment you, Juvenius, on your Discord profile pic. Every single time you key up, every single person on the stream sees "Vote Juvenius for CSM 15." That is how you get your name out there.
Thank you. You can also go to my webpage. It's called vote.juvenius. You can see in detail our proposal and what we're talking about. And also you can go to a forum post and you can see all the support we've been having from people who've helped.
Really, write this down. Write this down.
What's
Clear,
the
strong message.
what's the crux? Like, what's your top couple of issues? Like, what are your?
So I've been an EVE player for more than 8 years with special interest on new players and community life. I've been very involved in the community life of the Spanish-speaking community, even though I speak English and I've been in a couple of English-speaking corporations. I find that I'm most useful if I help people who need the help and Spanish-speaking community. There are many people who don't understand the UI. So we've been playing the Eve on hard mode for years now. We've been teaching people how to play the game, how to be self-sufficient, and how to get from zero to hero in a couple of months. And the thing is, for me, the main issue that I'm running for CSM is that I think we should. Sorry, I think we should look outside the box for solutions. Like right now, I think we're too focused on details on how to get the game right, just twitching it. But right now, to get new players in, to hold on those new players, I think we should flip the paradigm right now. And that is, we should focus on new players. Everything should be focused on new players, alliances, all players, everybody should be focused on new players. And for me, this is my greatest motivation because we've been doing this for 4 years. I get 20 people a month in our academy. They don't speak English. They don't speak any language that the UI is in. We teach them how to go in a fleet, how to warp to a gate, everything. And then we invite them to nullsec. And they form part of one of the most complex and powerful organizations of the game. That's Goons. Even though it could be any organization, right? But it's very, very complex. So
So I have a quick question. If I was a Spanish native like player. Is there a wiki? Is there like
No,
a central Spanish language website that you could go to learn at all?
and this is the thing. We didn't have anything like that. So I started
Hmm.
the first podcast in Spanish.
Oh, I
It
love
was
it.
called Habla Eva Online, and it was a great
I
podcast. A
love
lot
it.
of
I
work.
love.
We didn't. It didn't last long because it was hard work, and I just sympathize a lot with what Metro does, because it's a lot of work to do this. And I was running a corp at the moment, so I stopped doing that. I started doing streams. I started doing YouTube videos, but as you say, there is no central repertoire of information people could just look at. We recently started like a forum. It's called Eve Foro, Forum in Spanish,
Hmm.
eveforo.com, to just centralize people and to have people together. It's a bit complicated because the community, it has more than 20 different countries that speak Spanish, different cultures, and everybody is different. So it's difficult to get um, everybody on the same place. But the actions are there, of what we're taking to help out the community. But besides that, that's not the problem, because we already have overcome those limitations. We've been playing Eve since the start of the game. That's not the issue. There's a broader issue here. How do we bring players to the game? How do we open up new markets? How do we help new players stay on the game? I think I have a perspective on that. And my whole basis for my candidacy, it's a new perspective on the CSM. I think we've been doing it forever. We've been very specialized on looking at the problem of the community from one perspective. I think we should have a different perspective, and that's what I'm bringing to the table.
I think that's an excellent platform, and if I may strengthen your point, even well, for 2 points actually. Firstly, as you said, Spanish is one of the most widely spoken languages on the planet. So many different countries have,
400 million.
yeah, so many different countries have residents, that this is their first language or only language. And that's definitely a strong position to take. This is a virtually untapped market for EVE Online. That's number one. And number two, your focus on new players is extremely strong. The existing player base is aging out. People go through phases in their lives, and EVE Online, being around for 17 years, has a lot of people who are going to stop playing, not because they don't like it, but simply because it doesn't work for them anymore or doesn't matter to them anymore. The new players are the future, the new blood is the future, and EVE Online is notoriously bad at not bringing in, it brings in lots, but keeping new players, helping them get involved. And the nitty gritty, the balance of this or the balance of that, this is overpowered, this is underpowered, this is fair, this is unfair. That's all important and that's all good to deal with, but that's kind of the developer's job. And yes, we have to assist them. But even, let's say Eve is a terrible game. It's not, but let's say Eve is a terrible game and completely broken. The game has always been more about the fact that this is a community hobby. And if it's a terrible game, then let's all play this terrible game together. Let's all have fun. Let's all complain about it together. Whatever the thing is that you do, as long as the sentence ends in together, then you're going to have fun. No matter whether the game is hard or easy or fair or unfair, let's all do it together. And I think that is definitely a very strong position to take.
I like what you said about the second part, but I think your first point was the really strong one about the Spanish. Even if it's not localization, right? It's a Spanish conduit, right, for Spanish-speaking players to kind of get in, and also, on your podcast point, there's a lot of people at TIS, that would love to help. If you wanted to do that again, right, and keep it, kind of low. You don't need a lot of production value, right? Like
No,
you just need
don't.
an hour or
Thanks,
two.
Ron. Thanks, Ron, for that. But that time passed. This was
Hmm.
2016 when I did this podcast. Like I have
Mm-hmm.
all the roles that I'm very focused right now on our corporation, and
Mm-hmm.
this candidacy is because there's a vacuum of people knowing that we're out there and we can help CCP and the CSM find better solutions to bring players in because we've had this experience. There is a Spanish speaking alliance. Most people don't know. It's called Coalición Hispana. It has territory down in Providence. It exists. And there are lots of corporations. There's lots of alternatives for Spanish speaking players to be in. So having a Spanish localization, you're going to open the market for 40,000 players immediately. The 1% of the
Mm-hmm.
1% of 400 million people is 40,000 players like that. But that's not a limitation for us. Like we've been playing this game like forever. But right now, what I'm proposing is there's a different way to tackle new players. Like I was talking this with other CSM members. Like we want Eve to be a social game. We want Eve to be a multiplayer game. So it needs to look more like Facebook in a way, and less than a spreadsheet. I don't know if you can understand the analogy there, because we don't have very good social tools. Why is this high tech corporation growing? Because it's just sending emails to new players. It identifies the new players through the API, through the EC thing, and it brings new players in. And those new players find, oh, there's someone that cares for me, someone that wants a better experience for me. I want to have fun with these guys. So they join that corporation, and that way they catch them, they put them, they train them, and they form part of a community fast. I think we should change that right now on recruiting, on socializing, on helping people. And that's my pitch for
I
CS.
so now maybe this is me putting on my work hat a little bit. So I would say that I like everything that you said. I would like look for some points, right? Like some sort of very specific kind of points because a lot of people before you, right, have kind of tackled that problem or thought they've tackled that problem or offered solutions and that kind of thing. So I would say, rather than, hey, let's do it better, to, hey, can we do X? Can we do Y and can we do Z? That sort of thing. And
I have
and maybe that is your your sort of more in depth kind of platform. So, but that's what I would say because if you kind of position it like that, I mean, I don't know, right? Like I don't know if the voter base would like that or dislike that, but I would say, that
it's a
as a
different point
product
of
designer, like it's like, well, then that means everyone before you has absolutely no idea what they're doing. You know what I mean?
no,
Like,
no, no, no,
yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah.
One second. I'm going to tell you a story of something in the Spanish speaking community.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time someone comes in, I ask them, how did you come about learning what Eve is about? Because CCP doesn't do active promotion of the game in Spanish speaking countries. They do very little, actually, in promoting the game. We have ads and stuff, but there's no real content in Spanish of the game. So I ask people, how do you came about learning about the game? And there's this guy called Rager Coffee out there. He has videos with 400, 300, 200,000 views talking about EVE Online. And he doesn't even play the game. He's just a storyteller. And
Love it.
the funny thing is, everybody is excited about the stories that he's telling about the Imperium and about the battles and about treachery, and everybody loves that. And he's an outlier. He doesn't play Eve. I invited him once to our comms to speak, and he said, "I know 60% of what I say is part of the theatrical thing that I do, but there's something there." And I went, "Look, this guy's onto something. This guy has something, and he's not even playing the game. He's an outsider." And when you look at what's happening on HiSec right now with this guy sending emails, it tells you that something is off. the recruiting model, the way that we socialize, something is off. We should try to steer the game through like asking and socializing more. We recruit 20 people a month in our organization, and when I ask people what drives you to play this game, and everybody says the same. I wanted to play those big battles. I wanted the spaceships. I love the sci-fi, and people are psyched about the game. And sometimes they just have a wall that it's presented to them, and only with friends you can climb that wall. I don't know if I'm sorry, I get excited. So
I can tell that you're Spanish because you're
Kind of.
snapping your fingers. I love it. I love it, man. I think it's great, dude. I love that. I love the storytelling, and I love the narrative, and I love how things intertwine and the big battles and that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot to say for that. With the kind of the Spanish speaking portal and recruiting, and I can understand CCP's position as well, because why would you market your game if there is no Spanish localization, right?
yeah, and there's so many points I could talk about. How do I think we should improve the game from my perspective, the experience that I have for more than 3 years recruiting people. So this is an idea. Why don't we have a simple help button out there that you just click and boom, automatically you have a chat button that you can chat with anybody, with somebody, a chat help. I don't know.
We
I
have
haven't
that
finished
though.
it.
We have the global help, right?
Yeah,
Is
but
there a
not
Spanish help channel? That's
it.
actually good.
There is not.
Interesting.
There's not.
That's
There's not a
interesting
Spanish.
question. Yeah.
Well, that
There's
seems
not.
like low hanging fruit. That sounds like an initiative that can be easily, executed on.
Juve, you talk about helping a lot of new players. What, and I presume you see a lot of these new players, the attrition. Not all of them stay. You say with
Yes, it's
you've it's difficult to keep the blood in the game. What factors do you see that makes a new player sink or swim? What are the biggest factors?
I think progression. I think people want that Titan or that super as fast as possible. They just want to play on the end game. And they just don't see niches that they can stop and just smell the flowers. It's a game. We're here to have fun. And I think we should have more stable progression of players through the years so they can play the long game and have fun in every step. I think people are very exposed to the end game and to these big battles, and they're not exposed to the middle game. And I don't think people that do level 4 missions or do factional warfare sometimes or do this middle ground things get enough attention. It's just the end guy's game. They get all the attention, and I think this is not fair. You can have like I have Titans and I have like supers and stuff, but I enjoy it more when I go on a cruiser that you can train in 2 months. And this is the kind of exposure of players need to say, look, I don't need 10 months to play this game and have fun. I could play this game 2 months in, and I've been having fun just by 2 hours or 3 hours of play a week, and I don't even need to be an omega player. I could most definitely be an alpha player with a couple of months and have all the fun in the world.
Do you feel people are lured to the game under false expectations because we only hear about the big fights, we only hear about the $100,000, $200,000 Titan brawls. We rarely hear about this, the smaller fights, the
Yep.
PVE.
What I'm saying here is that even though that exists, I'm saying it's harder to get there. Those battles are great. Everybody has fun, but the thing that I'm saying is we should have smaller steps with a longer ladder that isn't so hard.
I see. I ask you this because I'm a very new player. I'm like 9 months new, but I have a very different experience of being new, being recruited by a friend rather than coming across Eve, well, naturally. So I had that thing keeping me in. Have you noticed the retention rates of players that have, I guess, make friends or make bonds or have existing friends in the game, and how long they stay compared to those who go at it alone?
I can compare you my own experience, the only one that I can talk about from Requiem Academy. That's the academy that we run, and the players that go in to Requiem. It's the alliance side of the equation. And when CCP brought their retention rates that they had globally, we had 10-fold better retention rates that they did. I don't know if my formula is better or worse, but it's working for us. But we're very focused on community. The most important player in our organization is the new player. He gets a star immediately that he comes into our comms. He's immediately identifiable. Why do we have a red dot for items in our game and we don't have a red dot for new players? We should focus more on new players coming in the game and helping them and identifying them, giving them tools, social tools. And for me, for us, the tools that have worked in Requiem is that they can identify first people who can help them. This is the expert in industry. This is the expert in PvP. This is the expert on, I don't know, transport or whatever area of expertise. We have somebody on Requiem that can help those guys, and they can ask questions. They can do that for a month and not even enter our organization. Did you? Oh, yeah, I tried your academy. It's great. Yeah, I'm gonna leave. Okay, bye bye. It's okay. You learn.
I think it would be like 4 seconds before. The reason that new players don't have red dots on them is because it'd be like 4 seconds before the Red Dot Hunters Corporation was formed in HiSec, and they just hunted down the red dots. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, so I'm gonna take off, guys. It's been great, but I know what real pain is because I do not have a faction Titan yet, and right now should feel that burden that Ron does not have a faction Titan.
Ron
And
also
it's a
doesn't have all
shame.
3,000 skins.
He does. He has a faction super. He has a faction super. Don't give it to me.
So I'm just saying, you guys
How
should feel
how
that.
close are you to all 3,000 skins, Ron?
Oh, I want to address some.
I
Actually,
think I have
Ron,
like
go.
900 and something. Like, don't even joke about that, dude. Like, I love skins. Don't joke, dude. Like, that's serious business. Love you guys. Have a great day. Matter all. Love you. Have a great day, guys.
Take it, Ron. I want to address something to Kiram, who says no one wants to join Eve and be irrelevant in low sec or wormholes. Well, if you tell people that they're going to come into Eve, that they're going to be FCs or they're going to be in Titans, they're going to be in key battles that are happening all the time, they're going to go join Eve and they're going to go however long it takes for them to get into a Titan or Super, and they're going to be lured by this false image. They're going to have this idea that they're going to be relevant in some big fight, and they're going to go to that big fight, and whatever ship they get in, and they'll find it's slow, it's tie-dye, and these fights happen once every year, twice every year, maybe once every 2 years. And
That is a total bait and switch. I agree.
Yep. They're not gonna like that experience. And you talk about joining some low sec group or small group of passionate people. I can't even count the number of people who have told me that they've been in alliances of 5, 10, 20,000 people, and they were alone. Imagine being alone amongst 20,000 people. You want to create strong bonds. You want to create great stories. You don't want to create this false image that all of Eve is about getting into a Titan in these big fights.
Okay, guys. Thank you guys very much for hanging out. We're way over time. I just wanted to invite you guys all to come to Talking in Stations Discord and hang out and have these debates all day long if you want. But we got to cut it off. Turns out CCP is on. There's a dev on Push to Talk, so we'll go ahead and raid them. And thank you guys for showing up today. And again, Saturday is just kind of a casual day. We're talking about Eve topics that come up. But I think there's a lot of learning that was done today, especially around corporations and CSM, stuff like that. So thanks everybody that was in this channel and everybody who was in chat. I want to thank you guys. We're going to send you over now to see what CCP is saying. Stay tuned for this raid. Thank you guys. I hope CCP's over there. I was told they were. I don't know.
Where in which channel?
INN Push to Talk show.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, if they're not, sorry, I'm sending you over in here.
Sorry about hijacking that. I'm really
We're,
pissed
we're
off
not
at what
done
that
yet.
guy
We're
said.
not done yet. Hold on a second.
Streamfleet is also online.
Oh, maybe I sent them to the wrong place. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
No, that's not.